everybody. Welcome into my latest live broadcast. It's Friday. Today is the 28th of February, 2020. I have to look because I don't even know what day it is anymore. My name is CareyHolzman. Thank you guys for joining me so much. I hope everybody can see and hear me. Lots of news, lots of million things going on right now. So, first things first. Hi. I tend to get right to business, don't I? Not. First of all, microphone's too loud? No, it looks good on my side. Maybe when I talk loudly, but I'm looking at the levels and, I mean, it looks good, but I can't hear it. Give me some feedback, guys. Matt says, did I hear in a recent video there will be a discount with Acronis soon? Yes, Acronis is coming on the show on World Backup Day, which I think is, I'm going off of my brain here, which is not reliable. I think it's Tuesday, March 26th, but as we approach that, I'll be promoting it to bring Bogowden back on the show, and we'll have, we'll go in depth with some how-tos with the Acronis trimmage software, and at that time, we will offer a discount unique for you guys only. Also, going to bring RoboForm on the show. RoboForm has got let me tell you something, guys. It's pretty rare RoboForm offers a discount, and when they do, it's for a very short period of time. RoboForm is a password filler outer. It'll fill in your username and password for your websites. It's all encrypted. It's all safe. It's all secure. I've been using it for years and years and years. And I bought 5 years license last time I bought it because they had a Black Friday sale. And I'm like, you know, a year goes by in a week for me at this point in life. Everything's moving so quick. And I knew it doesn't go on sale very often. I talked to RoboForm. And I said, you guys have to do something special for my viewers that you don't normally do. Or let's not do this at all. And they agreed. They're going to offer you guys a very special discount, a very generous discount. I mean, short of paying you to use it, it's a good deal, okay? So I'll tell you more about that next month, which is just a couple days away. We'll talk about it next week. It sounded more dramatic. Next month. Next month is a couple hours night's sleep away or so. David Anderson says it's Tuesday, March 31st. I thought it was the 20. Okay, I don't know, but and it may not be on that day. It may be that we're promoting that day. Acronis, we're talking back at the World Backup Day. We might be on that day or before that day to promote that day. Does that make sense? Like, depending on how busy Acronis is, depending on how busy I am. Ideally, we do it on World Backup Day. Okay. Okay? Okay. I gotta take a breath. I'm so excited. I have so many things to talk to you about. So Thready has been sitting in my office on a shelf, and I took it out the other day. Listen to me. I took Thready out. I took him out, hooked him up, got him updated. There were new AMD chipset drivers. There was, I think, a new Radeon. It's got a Vega 64 in there. Drivers. Retested the RAID array. It's moving at just around 10,000 kilobytes a second. Fast. But it's still noisy. It's too noisy for production. Like, to make it a streamer, first of all, it's overkill. Second of all, it's noisy. And I didn't do any cable management on it because I don't feel like it's ready. It's not good enough. And my sister's been doing video editing for me. She puts together the edits of the builds and the quick tips videos. And the X99 machine that I have her using was originally built from parts that were the original parts destined to be in the Xenos build. You keeping up with all this? But then, you know, the Xenos build got put off, and then the parts got sort of obsolete. And I didn't want to put obsolete parts in this beautiful Xenos case. And the Xenos build will continue when time permits, but right now it's pushed aside because it's no customers waiting on it. It's my own personal project. but we'll come back to that. I'm like all over the map, I realize that. Please try and track with me on this. So I brought Thready over to my sister's house, and I advised her to start editing on it, because there's nothing worse than working on one of my videos that goes on and on and on. And then you put all this work into, you have to watch everything, you've got to cut, transition, zoom, do all this stuff, and then have the software crash on you and you lose everything because you were so into what you were doing you didn't think I should save in case something happens. And it's been happening more and more on the X99, and we don't know why. And so I said, let me just do something with Threadripper, right? At least we'll give it a purpose, a job. So you tell me, you use it, and you tell me and compare it to the X99, and let me know if you like it, if you don't like it, do you think it's loud, is the RGB lighting annoying, and put it into the hands of someone who's actually going to work. She's only had it 2 days, and the first day she didn't even get a chance to hook it up. Everybody's busy. She's hooked it up today. She emails me and she says, if this is anything from what I've experienced with Thready, if anything I've experienced with Thready so far is normal, then you can pry this from my cold dead hands. She loves it. She absolutely loves it. Like, it must be a huge world of difference. That's all she's told me right now, but that's a good start, and I feel better that Thready is serving a purpose. And then I told her if she likes it so much, then she can do the cable management on it, because I just brought it over there exactly the way you guys have seen it. The panels are not on it, the cable management's not done, because I feel like it's not good enough. She's like blown away by it so far. And if that stays that way, then I'm going to tell her, all right, it's your machine to use for editing, so you make it look pretty. You do the cable management. Take your time, have pride, do it right, and then I'll bring the panels back over, we'll seal it up, we'll do another follow-up video on it with it finally completed, and it just will serve a different purpose than I intended for it to have. Okay, in the meantime, what's going to happen with the 3950X back there? That was intended to be the editor, which it still may become. Once my sister gets accustomed to using Thready, and she has concluded that she never wants to use X99 again, then I'm going to take X99 back, and I'm going to give her 3950X, and she can compare Thready versus 3950X. For working, right? This isn't about what the benchmarks say. This isn't about which one's prettier or more intimidating. This is about which one is helping me be more productive, which one is less frustrating to use for whatever reason, noise, lights, performance, storage capacity. And then she's going to pick one of those two. And that's the one she's going to edit with, and I'm going to take the other one back. And then we'll find another purpose for it. I have 3 motherboards raring to go to give to the folks over at Kids at Hope. That's that charity. I was initially going to ask you guys to contribute to help that we can get them 5 computers. It looks like I won't need any contributions from you guys, that what has already been contributed covers 3 of the 5 right now. And then there's only 2 more after that. And I have a feeling that's just going to fall into place on its own. If it doesn't, then I'll ask you guys for, if you guys want to be a part of that. But right now, I'm happy to report that everything is just like, it's just falling into place with no effort on my part. It's just falling into my lap. And 3 out of the 5 machines, pretty much I have parts to go. Possibly even 4, now that I think about it. So then I'll just leave 1 more. So I wanted to give you an update on that as well. A couple of contributions have come in, so let me give a couple of shouts out to these kind folks. It looks like, what have I missed? Chester Hughes was the first contributor today with the $2. Thank you, Chester. Brendan Looney contributed £2. Tony Wallows contributed $19.99 and also made a contribution with an Amazon gift card. Thank you so much, Tony. You're always so supportive. Steve Welch contributed $2, and Jesse Kirk, another, not that any of you guys aren't, but another very common contributor here. Jesse Kirk, thank you so much. He says, hey, that's great news, Carey, is his message. You're the man, and a big thank you. You're the man. All right. I want to tell you a little something about, Rick Lakes just contributed $5. Thank you, Rick. I've had a number of people who reach out to me and they say, can I work for you? Can I apprentice under you? And I always tell them no. all right? But I met somebody about a year ago, and I kind of see myself in him, you know? And I'm like, you know, if I was going to bring on an apprentice, I would, and he hasn't asked, by the way. You know, I want you to think about what I'm saying. But what he did is he left me with this impression that he was interested, and that he was sincere, and that he was a hard worker. Like, I'm getting this vibe. I can't explain it. And it's been in the back of my mind ever since I met him. And things have gotten so busy, I thought I'd give him a call, make sure he remembered who I am, and he does, of course. And, I mean, I say of course, but I didn't mean it like it sounded. Anyway, he's interested. Right now, we've never worked together, and I can be a pretty demanding and difficult person to work with, and I know you might find that hard to believe. So we're going to try. He's interested, and we're going to try. And if I have his help, then things are going to change here much faster, whether it's camera holding, taking live calls and being able to screen them before we go live, help with cable management, help with computer building. There's so much potential here to help the channel grow. And of all the people I've met, the one that didn't ask me is the one I think is right for the job. So take with that what you will, and it may not work out, and it might, but I'm excited that there's change, right? I said 2020, this year was going to be a lot of change. And I have to stick my toe in the water and do some things different because things are getting so crazy right now that it's a good problem to have, but I'm at a decision point where I have to start telling customers no and turning away work, or I have to figure out a way to scale up just a little tiny bit so I can keep up with demand, but not bite off more, not commit myself to hiring more people and then have the work dry up and then have no way to pay them. So it's a very slow, very little minor change, but it's a very important one, and it's one that I hopefully get right on the first try, because every time I have to start over again, it just takes longer to accomplish my goals, right? So I'm really excited about that potential, and I'll have more information about that next month as well. So that's all good. Today's video, Charles Heldkamp has contributed $2. Thank you, Charles. Simon Etches contributed £2. Thank you, Simon. Okay, I need to take a breath. I've got a lot of energy. I was trying to go live yesterday. I could not get a break. I was trying to go live at 1 o'clock today. I couldn't catch a break. So I'm not complaining about it. I just want you to know that that's how crazy things have been. And I'm trying to help everybody. I don't tell anybody no. I try not to make anybody wait for a return phone call, but I might be real quick. You know, I might be like, hey, what do you need? And if they need more time, then we have to schedule it. But be that as it may, minutes turn into hours, hours turn into days, days turn into weeks. And everything's moving very, very quickly. You with me? Person I don't even know calls me up. Well, he contacts me and tells me his story. And I said, you better call me so we can talk. He says, I watch your videos and I built a computer following your videos, and the computer will not work. And it was, which computer did you build? Well, I did the $1,000 build, the one you just did. Well, that's a good machine. There's not very many parts. There's not a lot to screw up. Where'd you get your parts from? That's my first question. And I want you to think about what I'm telling you. Did you get your parts from a reputable seller? Did you go on eBay? Did you buy each part from a different place? Well, turns out he was shopping by price, and he got one part here and one part there and one part over there. And I told you a little bit of this story, but in case you missed it before, he bought an open box returned motherboard, right? That's the board, the mother of all boards, the most important board. And it was discounted because Amazon didn't have the box anymore, and they discounted it, and he bought it, but he doesn't know why it was returned, and supposedly Amazon tested it, but let's be real. Amazon probably put a chip and RAM in it. Did it post? Good, send it off. That's as far as their testing goes. If it comes back a second time, then it's probably bad, right? They let the customer do the testing, but you are saving $10 or $15 or $20, right? To me, it's not worth it. So what he's telling me is when he turns the machine on, it posts. And he created a Windows 10 installation media following my video using the Windows Media Creation tool. And when it does the first reboot to install Windows, it locks up. So I said, okay, well, where'd you get the parts? So the motherboard is an open box from Amazon. I said, you know, it's probably the motherboard. So he gets another motherboard and puts it in. Same problem. I said, well, prior to this, I had said, well, take out a RAM module and try to install. And if it happens, then take out the other RAM module and put the one you took out back in and try that. And he says, I did that. It doesn't make a difference. I mean, it's not likely his power supply or his case. He's got an Intel SSD in there, which seems to be working. So all that's left is the CPU. Where'd you get the CPU? Best Buy. Oh no, Best Buy again. I mean, I never hear about bad CPUs. Never, never, never. I guess I should say nearly never. So the guy sent me a bad i5. We verified it was bad. Another customer bought an i7 or an i9 from Best Buy, and it turned out to be a 3rd generation chip that was remarked to look like a 10th generation chip or a 9th generation chip. And Intel says, well, Best Buy is not an authorized distributor. That's what the customer's telling me. I believe that to be true. I haven't investigated it, but I don't know where Best Buy is getting their chips. So I asked this guy, okay, where'd you get the chip? He says, Best Buy. I went, oh boy. Well, he says, no problem. He buys another chip. It's a 9700K, I think, like $400. Puts it in. I'm like, well, I said, that's gonna, there's nothing else left. That's it. If that doesn't solve your problem, I said jokingly, I'll pay you to fix it. Remember, I don't even know this person, right? He calls me, he goes, I put a new CPU in, it's still doing the same thing. I'm like, it's not possible. It's just not possible. You're not telling me something. He's like, I don't know what else to say. I mean, maybe you want to come look at it, right? And initially, that was his first thing. He was like, maybe you should come. If you have time, you know, I got a repair for you. I'm like, it doesn't sound like it's a difficult repair. It sounds like look, if he would have bought all brand new parts from one retailer, right? If it was Amazon, Newegg, whatever, his life would have been easier. And since I've been burned so many times from people bargain shopping, you know, it ends up costing them a lot of time and money. My first go-to when I hear that is return that open box or return that item that wasn't on the up and up. It wasn't brand new. Unless you're a technician, don't buy the cheap stuff, because the cheap stuff often requires more technical talent to get it working. I keep saying it over and over again. It's just not worth it. It's not worth the $20, you know? So I'm like, you don't need me to fix this. Just change them. There's a reason why somebody turned that motherboard back to Amazon, and we don't know what it is. So I was pretty confident. You don't need me. You just need to get the right parts like I tell you in my videos, and you'll be fine. I was wrong, okay? I was wrong. This poor guy now, his 2 CPUs, and hopefully he'll be able to return one. And CPUs can be very difficult to return. CPUs and RAM, retailers are very strict on returns. And he's trying to save money and do it himself, and now it's costing more money and it's taking more time, and nothing makes any sense. I even suggested he use a different flash drive. Maybe there's an incompatibility with the flash drive. Recreate the Windows 10. He already did that. Okay. So, what do you think the problem is, ladies and gentlemen? And the reason why I'm asking this is twofold. One, I want to see how many of you in the chat room know what you're talking about, right? Because I don't know, most of you I don't know. And I get a lot of criticism. I get a ton of it. And I don't know if the criticism is coming from somebody who's ever done anything, okay? People might, I don't want to get political, people might criticize the president, but they've never accomplished that, right? And I don't care who is in that role, but whoever accomplished that, that's one heck of an accomplishment, right? Regardless of how you got there, whether it was what you consider to be on the up and up and whether or not you think they deserve it, they did something you will never ever do. And so to criticize somebody who's done something more than you've ever done is a little preposterous to me. So when I'm taking criticism, I don't know if it's coming from somebody who is also a tech who fixes hundreds of computers over the years, or if it's coming from somebody sitting on a couch who thinks they know everything, or somebody just trying to jab me and get a reaction. I don't know. So let's put our money where our mouth is, and you have an opportunity to tell me right now why you believe this problem is happening, and let's see how it turns out. Now, I titled this video an eye-opening diagnostic because I have no idea what's wrong with this computer, but when I figure it out, I promise you, it's going to be eye-opening. This is a problem I've never heard of before, with the exception of having perhaps a bad motherboard or a bad chip or bad RAM. The idea that he should change out the power supply or the SSD makes no sense to me. In theory, there should be no problem there. I've never seen a bad SSD, not one I've ever installed. Not a customer's ever brought me one. I've never had a bad one. I've heard people on the internet talk about them, and I've talked to Brian over at $300 Data Recovery, and he's got a few that he recovers data from. But I have yet to have an actual customer bring me a machine with a bad SSD, and I have yet to install an SSD for a customer that has ever failed. So I'm leaning on the fact it's probably not the SSD. So let me know what you think. We have a couple contributions, so I want to give these people a shout out. Alan Wimp contributed £2. He says, I love your videos. Have another Coke on me, mate. Hey, cheers, Alan. Thank you. A contribution has come in from Wilhelm Gordon, $4.99. He says, hey, Carey, sorry I'm late. Well, I was waiting for you to get here, so we can get started now. Thank you for your contribution. And Colin Hunt has contributed £20. He says, you are amazing. Oh, thank you, Colin. You are amazing, he says. Andrew Dorsett's contributed 5 New Zealand Kiwis. He says, good to see you live again, Carey. Thank you. New Zealand dollars. Ryan Farmer's contributed £20. Hey, Carey and the gang. Hey, Ryan, thank you. Irving T, watching us in Marseille, France, contributes €2. He says, thank you, Carey. You and Linda are great. Brian Rempel has contributed 5 Canadian dollars. You guys are generous today. Hey, thank you so much. So I've been going through my mind, particularly about the criticism and the right way to respond to it. And there was somebody, who was it? A comedian. His name is Russell Peters. And he goes, you know, he called it a celebrity. When you're a celebrity, and I'm not a celebrity, so. But he says, when you're a celebrity, people get to talk crap about you. And if you say anything back, you're a jerk. So you're expected as a celebrity to take abuse and to not defend yourself. If you defend yourself, people think you're a jerk. And a jerk isn't the word he used, but we're going to keep it family friendly. And I thought about what he said, and I thought about, you know, somebody comes at me, I didn't do anything to them. If they don't like my video, they can switch it off. You say you should just ignore it. But it's ceaseless. It's like being hit. You know what it is? It's like a mosquito flying around the room. And the mosquito isn't necessarily hurting you, but there's only so much of it you can ignore before you just start swatting at it just to get rid of the annoyance. You just want the annoyance to stop. And so was giving this a lot of thought. And I thought, you know, people need to make videos. If you want to criticize somebody who's at least done something, what I'm doing is I'm showing you through my own voluntary will, I don't have to do it, how I work and how I think. And if you don't see value in that, I don't care. Like, it doesn't matter. Right? This is what I do. This is right. So if you're saying you did this wrong, or you're unprofessional, and this is what you did, and this is what you did, you need to show me. And if you're not willing to show me, then I have no interest in what you have, no sort of criticism like that, because it's one thing to sit there and tell somebody how to do something, and it's another thing to do it. And I greatly respect people who do things. A lot of people who criticize others don't acknowledge the fact that at least the other person was doing something other than criticizing. They were actually doing something. And they didn't ask for your approval. Like, that wasn't required to get your approval for them to do it, or to do it your way. When a reputable news organization makes provides a how-to video that is completely inaccurate and potentially dangerous, well, we expect better. We expect due diligence, and we expect our journalists to know what they're writing about, to not just make stuff up as though they're experts when they have no clue and have no proper verification of information that they're relaying. So we will hold these professional media organizations to a higher standard. But when a guy is showing you how to, or a gal, when somebody is showing you voluntarily, you know, maybe from their kitchen, they're sharing information with you, and maybe it's not the most polished thing, you don't like it, it's not for you, man. But it's helping other people, and why would you get in the way of that? Like, it's really something I'm trying to find an answer to it, and there's only so much ignoring can do. And I just think the bottom line is, if you want to criticize anybody who's taken the effort to make a video, then criticize with a video of your own and demonstrate how it should have been done. And I will invite that to anybody who's critical of anything I do. Show me how to do it better. Teach me. Don't just bark at me. So, all right? And we're going to do that today. That's why we're going to say, you guys tell me what you think the problem is with this. Let's find out who's right, who's wrong. But I will tell you this. Every computer problem is fixable. If you guys have been watching this channel, when I started this channel about 10 or 12 years ago, I think it's been about 12 years now, I don't know how many computers I fixed on video. Not every computer I fix is on video. I fix a lot of computers. Every computer has been fixed, and rarely have two computers ever been the same. Whether it's a laptop or a desktop, rarely do you see the same hardware ever. So when I struggle to figure out how to open a laptop, somebody might criticize me for not being properly prepared, but I have experience. And my experience means everything's kind of the same. You know, I'm a little slower because I have to familiarize myself with it. But I'm not going to study a manual for 2 hours. I don't have time for that. I have to get the job done and move on to the next one. And I may never see that same laptop again. So I'm not going to do a lot of research. You know, I'm just going to get into it because I have experience. And like I said, studying it and being quote unquote prepared like that, that's not what I do. I don't script things out. I don't rehearse. I just get the job done. That's what I'm paid to do. And it's whatever the job is presented. So this week I was asked to convert some old cassette tapes to digital audio and to remove some of the hiss and raise the volume. I was asked to digitize some old movies. I was asked to repair 2 laptops. I was asked to build 4 computers. And everything I fix and everything I build, 98% of the time, I never see it again. And you're witness to that. You can look on my channel and you can see. So now I just thought, all right, let's give you guys an opportunity, for those of you who want to just have a little fun with it, right? Take a guess if you want to take a guess, or if you're very confident and you know for a fact you know what this is, tell me. And I promise if you're right, I will remember you. And the next time I see a comment from you, I will weigh it on a different scale than comments from other people. Unless, of course, you're a kind supporter, in which case, you know, you don't challenge me. That's very much appreciated. If that wasn't obvious, you know, it wouldn't be here if it wasn't for the supporters. The supporters far outweigh the trolls. And the supporters, all you guys in blue, all the people who contribute, you're the guys that keep me coming back for more abuse. Not from you, but from the others, you know. You're the guys, you're the people, I don't want to say guys, you're the people who make it worth enduring more abuse. That's a compliment, right? You get that? So I thank you guys so much because I love the positive feedback. I love it. I love the people who are as enthusiastic as I am. And I love the people who see value in what I see value in. Even if we might disagree, and even if you might have done it differently, the fact that you see value in it and the fact that you are kind is priceless to me. I want you to know that. And you guys are my main focus. For people who say I focus on the trolls too much, if I focused on the trolls too much, I would have stopped making videos. I just want you to know that. And the reason why I talk about it so much is I want you so I'm trying to share experience. I'm trying to educate, right? So not only am I trying to tell you about how to build and fix a computer, but I'm telling you about customer troubles. I'm telling you about getting paid problems or contractual issues. I'm telling you about different things customers ask me to do. And I also want to tell you about some of the downside of being on YouTube, which is having complete strangers attack you and tell you how stupid you are. Which, by the way, I already know how stupid I am. You don't need to tell me how stupid I am. I already know. People want to point out my flaws. I've been in this body my whole life. I'm pretty aware of my flaws. Thank you. So yeah, it bothers me, and I want you to know that it's something that goes through my mind, like, am I going to go through this today? But then I see all these friends in blue, and I see all these contributions, and I'm like, oh, it's so worth it. Okay? So I just want you to know that. Sincerely, it's worth it. Okay, Linda, you probably edited all that out, which means you're doing your job well. And the first thing we have to do when a customer brings us a computer is we have to verify the problem. We've got to recreate the problem. So this customer says, after the first reboot of a Windows install, the machine restarts, a little circle goes around like 5 or 6 times, and then it just freezes. And I've already told you, new motherboard, new CPU, RAM has been swapped. One module was taken out, not swapped with different RAM, but one module was removed. All the parts are the same parts that I use on the build. He followed it part for part. It's just the way he sourced the parts. I didn't like that. He's got the optical drive. It's not even plugged in. It's not even part of the equation. The front port umbilicals are hooked up correctly. The USB is hooked up correctly. He's got the front case fan plugged in, which I would not have plugged in, but it doesn't matter. He doesn't have a GPU. We're using onboard video. He's got a EVGA 550 watt power supply, which it's pretty much exactly part for part what I recommend. And it's pretty solid build, especially for a first-time builder. You have a machine that'll last you 8 to 10 years probably in performance and reliability. He's got the scythe cooler up here. He didn't take the wire ties off, which, I always warn you guys about that, but that's not the worst thing in the world. My job is to look for differences, right? If you're getting a different result than I'm getting, then what are you doing differently, right? That's what's going through my mind. So before we do anything else, let's verify the problem. So I'm going to plug in the computer and switch the power supply off, and let me move my drink over here. And I will plug in the keyboard and mouse dongle, and we'll turn those on. And then I need to get an HDMI cable so I can borrow your monitor at home, and we'll plug this customer's computer. Now, I've never met this gentleman before. He seems like a super nice guy, very genuine person, and I have never met a troll in person. I just want to say, everybody who has contacted me in a friendly and supportive way, I have enjoyed speaking with each and every one of them. And the trolls, never spoken with one, voice to voice, nor have I ever met one in person. So, what does that tell you about them? Cowards. Brave behind a keyboard. But it does make you leery of meeting anybody on the internet, right? Because you're like, oh, geez, there's some crazy people out there. I haven't met in person anybody who was crazier than me. So that's met me from YouTube. The YouTube. I asked the customer to give me his flash drive because I'm thinking maybe he's got a flash drive incompatibility, and he says he's tried 2 flash drives. He had a Corsair Cruiser, and here he's a Patriot 32 gig flash drive. Now, Windows only needs an 8 gig. Are we on autofocus? Is it focusing? Yeah. Windows needs an 8 gig flash drive, and anything more than 8 gigs is pretty much wasted space. But whatever. That's a different discussion. People misinterpret what I mean by that, so I won't. That's another thing that brings out the trolls. So I'm going to plug this into any blue USB port here, and then let's turn the switch on. Let's turn camera 2 on, which is the input for this machine. Why is it so little? Let's resize that. You must have been from the last video I did. I had it small for some reason. And let me get down here a little bit and put myself in a corner. Okay. Okay. Let's fire it up and see what it does. First thing I want to do, very first thing, is I want to go into the BIOS. And I want to make sure that I tell it that I want to boot from the Patriot memory. All right, that's the flash drive. Because he's made an attempt to install Windows, and then right now the solid state drive has partitions on it, and we're going to erase all those partitions and start again, just like you see me do it. Pi Von McLaren says Windows x64 only needs 4 gigs solid of USB. I think it used to be 4. I think it's at like 5 right now. And since you can't get a USB drive, the next size up from 4 is 8. I'm pretty sure, last I checked, Windows 10 is 5 gigs in size, but maybe it's changed. Regardless, I don't think you can find a 4 gig flash drive if you wanted to, not a new one anyway. We'll hit next and we'll hit install now. And we got 1,150 people watching. We're right on. Thanks, guys. Thanks for joining me today. I'm going to tell it I don't have a product key. I'm going to install Windows 10 Pro, even though I don't know what he's got. I don't really care at this point. And then we'll say accept the license terms, and then we'll go to custom install. And I'm going to delete all of these pre-existing partitions that were created from his attempts. Now this customer says they built a computer like a Core 2 Duo or something was the last time they built. So it's not that they're a first-time builder, but they're not an experienced builder. But this is a really simple build, and I am absolutely baffled. So in the meantime, we're going to go ahead and let Windows 10 install, and while it's doing that, won't you let me know where you guys are watching me from, because I'm always curious about that. I'm going to close down camera 1 here for a minute so we can keep an eye on Windows, and let's just watch this. I'll keep talking to you. Well, let's just watch this and see after the first reboot what it does. So because sometimes customers don't describe things very accurately, and it's tough sometimes to discern or translate what the customer is trying to describe. Oh, I see John Craig has contributed $50 via an Amazon gift card. Hey, thank you, John. And I also see a contribution from PayPal from PC Recreated Computer Repair, sent $5 from Carlos J. Hey, thank you, Carlos. Yeah, one of the benefits of me turning the camera off is I can check my phone. Sort of my little sneaky way of checking my phone, or maybe you knew that's what I was doing this whole time. But thanks you guys for supporting the channel. I see a text from Madi. Got your text, Madi, thank you. We're going to be building another computer here for Madi. Madi's having me build him a 4th computer, which is like the best compliment ever, right? The customer comes back 4 times. I mean, wow, that's pretty incredible. Usually you get that from businesses, not from individuals. So, you know, it's the greatest compliment. Greg thinks it's a bad Windows installation. I'm going to look through some of the comments and see what you guys think it is. Mike Bader, we still got to get Mike's computer finished. I see he's in the chat room. His is one of the builds I started that I haven't finished yet. Michael Dane watching us from Ohio. Vern Mahorny said, if it boots up, would the problem be keyboard or mouse? You know what, Vern, that's a great question, and it's something I asked the customer. I said, you know, what are you plugging into the computer? Do you have a printer plugged in? Do you have anything else plugged in? And then finally, are you using like an old keyboard or mouse? But no, he's got a modern Logitech, brand new wired keyboard, and I think he's got a wireless Microsoft mouse. And they're new. So that, and they're not giving any indication that they don't work. Like he goes in the BIOS, everything works. The full, you know, starting out Windows and to install it works. So, but that's a good question, and it was one I also asked as well. And then I wanted to verify nothing else was plugged in to the computer that didn't need to be plugged in. And he even mentioned that he has disconnected the optical drive entirely. So yeah, so that's why we have to recreate the problem, right? Because if it is his keyboard or mouse, then we won't see the problem here. But that's why I wanted to use his flash drive of Windows and not mine. Because what if he's got a flash drive incompatibility or a bad Windows install? Does the computer have any smell? No, the computer has no smell whatsoever. No. Everything, so far as I can tell, looks great. The build quality looks like he did a good job. He looks like he does good work, and he picked good parts. Big Hoss watching us in Livonia, Michigan. Sam Van Tiel's in the Netherlands. Pete Unwin watching us in Worcestershire, UK. Bob Keys in Birmingham in the UK. Bear Paw watches us from Swansea, Wales. Right on. Sherry McFarland watches us from Cleveland, Ohio. Now here we go. Let's see. He says that little circle goes around and it won't finish. He says, so far, I don't know if he's gotten this far. He did say everything got smaller, and that's why I started thinking it's a driver-related issue, right? Because if everything got smaller, that means the video driver went on. So we just saw like the Gigabyte logo get smaller. It became higher resolution, and therefore what many customers describe as getting smaller. It's continuing to spin. He says it will stop spinning and then it'll just sit there and freeze. Now, upon thinking about this, I realized I probably should have grabbed his keyboard and mouse. Normally with computer repairs, I do not request those items from customers because they rarely are the problem. And because he said they were new and they were name brands. It wasn't some knockoff keyboard he bought off eBay or some no-name brand that he bought off Amazon. Logitech is a reputable keyboard maker, maybe one of the best, and so is Microsoft when it comes to keyboard and mouse hardware. Okay, so we're on the second boot. I think he said it was the second boot. This is where we have the problem. He says that little circle goes around and it'll freeze. Let's see. So far, everything looks great. There's the freeze. Exactly as the customer described it. And he says he's let it sit here for a while and nothing happens. Okay, so now you and I have verified this live, unscripted. This is exactly what the customer described. Sometimes customers' descriptions are dead on, and sometimes they're not so good. Sometimes a customer will spend an hour explaining something that's a 5-minute problem. But in this case, we have a guy, first of all, that picked the right parts, followed all the important steps anyway, the most important steps, appears that he's built it correctly, and he's done everything the way he's supposed to do it, and we have this problem. Okay, so now you and I have seen this problem together, and we verified it. So the next step for me is to use my Windows 10 installation. So I'm going to power this machine off because this is a fast computer. Customer says to me, you know, there's some LEDs down here on the motherboard that light up. What do those mean? I go, I don't know, I don't care. Sometimes people go, you can hook a speaker up when the computer's not booting and hear the beeps. To me, real techs don't do that. So I'm old school tech. Old school techs, we use our brain. We don't want the broken computer to tell us what's wrong with it because it's broken. How can you believe what it's telling you? I would much rather, if there's diagnostic LEDs or diagnostic lights or beeps, I don't use them because they've proven to me over the years to be profoundly inaccurate. They might tell you you have a RAM problem when you have a CPU problem because the CPU is preventing access to the RAM, and so it says, oh, I can't access the RAM, and therefore you have a RAM problem. One of my favorites is on the Asus boards that have the digital LEDs. It'll come up with like a 00, and you go, well, what does that mean? And it says, it has no definition. Well, that's very helpful. So if it has no definition, why does it exist? It must mean something to somebody. Why won't you tell me? Now you're holding information, withholding information. Anyway, I think people who have to Google everything and have to read manuals are inexperienced, and that's okay. But when they're correcting me because I don't, I get a little offended. So I've got my Windows 10 USB flash drive here, and we're going to plug this in. I'm going to use the same USB port. Why not? We'll boot it right back up, and we're going to repeat the same process. I think F12 on the gigabyte boards will get us to the boot menu. And we're going to go to my SanDisk Extreme right here, and that's what we're going to boot to. And we're going to repeat just to take there's two items that we're diagnosing at this point, and that is the flash drive itself and the media that he created, right? We want to verify he doesn't have corrupt media. Even though the customer says they've used two different flash drives and they've rewritten and recreated the media two different ways. They did it with the media creation tool, and they did it using Rufus, the manual way, where you download the ISO image, which I've shown before, regretfully, because it, God forbid, Rufus updated and moved some buttons, and now people can't follow the steps because the buttons moved and they can't. They just want to follow click for click. They're not really reading or paying it. They're ritualizing what I'm trying to teach. So the Windows Media Creation Tool is a more reliable way to explain to novice folks how to do it because they can ritualize it, basically. They don't have to understand it. They don't have to read the screen. Just click here. So we're going to delete all these partitions. So there are people in this world who want to learn, and then there are people in this world who say they want to learn, but what they really want is for you to do it for them. And it's important the sooner you figure out that it's somebody who's really just wanting you to do that for them, that, they pay you, that you say, okay, you're going to pay me. They're like, well, I thought you were going to help me. Well, I told you how to do it, right? And you don't want to do it. You want me to do it, but I'm not doing it for free. So you could do it yourself, and I encourage you to do it. And then there are other people that you tell them one time, and they're like, oh, it saved my life. Thank you so much. You saved me a lot of money, and I'm up and running, and I did it myself. And I love those emails. I love, love, love those emails. I had a guy email me the other day, and I'm sorry I don't remember your name, and he said, sometimes, Carey, you have to tell people more than once. He says, I finally got this thing resolved. I don't remember it word for word, but the gist of it was that he wasn't listening. And that when he finally listened to what I said, it worked. So he summarized it by saying, sometimes you have to say it more than once for people to listen. And then he said, about 6 times seems to be about right. That was great. That made my day. I have to tell you, I still laugh. That's hilarious. Who else we have in here? Past me joins us from Germany. Jason Wheeler's in Missouri. Dionysus Karmiris is joining us from Greece, or Karmiris. Michael Martin is in Manchester, and Jimmy Bateman's joining us from Graham, North Carolina. Welcome in, everybody. I see a couple other contributions I may have missed here. Let me take a little look back, see what I've missed. Tom Jackson has contributed $7.77, jackpot, 777. He says, cheers, mate. Keep up the great work. Thank you, Tom. Alan Ronald has contributed 20 Australian dollars. He says, greetings from Perth, Western Australia. Keep up the great work. Hey, thank you, Alan. Glenn Davies also has contributed 5 Australian dollars. He says, my dibs are on the motherboard. There must have been a reason it was returned. Maybe that person made a video about it. Well, we already changed the motherboard, Glenn. This is a new motherboard, and it's a new CPU. John Craig has contributed £5. He says, there's no way that I'm going to attempt fault finding without access to the machine. No way. Step out of the way. Let me shake that man's hand. Sharon Idle has contributed £2 and says, just about worth it. Thank you, Sharon. I think. Glenn, again, Davies contributed $2 Australian. He says, I'm going to change my name to Mr. BSOD Solver. You make sure you add the OD to there. But thank you. David Griswold's contributed $5. He goes, here's a couple dollars for whatever you want to use it for. Thanks for all you do. David, I appreciate your thoughtfulness and your support. Wonder Woman has contributed $4.99. This is, hey, Carey, I loved your laptop upgrade video. I never knew about the SATA to USB cable, and I'm getting ready to do the same upgrade. Learned a bunch. Right on it. Thank you. Bear Paw has contributed £5 and says, here's a bit extra this time. Thank you, Bear Paw. A nice $20 contribution from David Starbuck. He says, been a while. Work sucks sometimes. I mean, it's work, right? David, why are you not a moderator? Let's fix that. And Alan Wimp should be a moderator. Wonder Woman's been here long enough. Is Wonder Woman a moderator? You are now. Who else am I missing as moderators here? Who am I missing? David Griswold? No, you're a moderator. I know John Craig and Glenn Davies are moderators. A couple other contributions have come in. Ghost Shadows contributed $2. George Patagas has contributed €1. Toddy Lane has contributed $5. Ghost Shadows says, this will still buy a Coke. Yes, it will. Indeed, it will. Winston Ang Lu, another frequent supporter and contributor here, contributed $10 Canadian and says bonjour from Vancouver, Canada. Madi Yoel has contributed $10, and Madi, very strong supporter here, along with a number of you. What am I doing? I was installing Windows and I forgot. What happened here? Hold on. I'm confused. Didn't I just do this? Didn't I erase the partitions and start again? I can't remember. I got distracted. Jim G says, yes, it booted back to the Windows install screen. That's what I thought just happened. That shouldn't have happened. What GPU is in the non-working PC? The one built onto the CPU. Let's turn the computer off, because after the first boot of Windows, you no longer need the bootable USB drive. And let's see what it does. Because now it has no option but to boot from the hard drive, the solid state drive. Michael Dane has contributed $5. He says, use my computer persuader. Apparently, YouTube frowns on that for some reason. But there was no there was nothing bad happened or nobody said anything. But I did go back and look at the rules on YouTube, and you're not supposed to do that on a live video. I'm such a rebel, Can't stop me, man. I'm a rebel. Rochester, New York 87, another, again, frequent contributor here, has contributed $10. He says, yes, it just booted back to the installer. I don't know why I did that. There's something weird happening here. Something strange. Al McDonald says he's watching us from Brooklyn. What are you looking at? People from New York, they talk by asking each other questions. How you doing? How you doing? You got a problem with me? Well, what are you looking at? What's your problem? It's nothing but questions. I kid, but it's funny. Paul Newman has contributed $2.99 Australian. He says, hey, Carey, another Aussie here. Hope you're well, mate. Hey, thank you, Paul. I hope you're well as well. I was fascinated how many Australians had emailed me about Rochelle Splat, the drag racing. Oh, there it goes. It froze. That kind of surprised me that drew so much interest. That was a long time ago. I don't even know if she remembers me. But if she remembers her trip to the Grand Canyon, she'll say, I remember that annoying guy. He got on my nerves. Okay, So what have we learned? So far, we know that the customer's flash drive is not the problem. We know the customer here, hold on, let me switch cameras here. Let's turn this off. Let's go back to camera 1. We know the customer has changed the motherboard. We know the customer has changed the CPU. And we have booted from our own Windows 10 media that we've used over and over and over again on laptops and desktops universally without an issue. So we know that this customer's flash drive and how they made it, they did all that right. We know the customer did good part selection, everything looks installed correctly and all the wiring's done correctly, no missing screws, no shortcuts, everything looks right. Even the RAM is the same RAM I use. The customer says they ran memtest 86 and it passes memtest 86 without a problem. The only thing we haven't tested, there's really just two things, is the power supply and the solid state drive. Now I'm leery that if I haven't made that clear already, that this is a solid state drive problem. But no matter how leery I am and no matter how much logic I can use for my assumption, the thing is if you're going to be a good technician, you have to know when to, so the first thing you want to do, if you're, in my opinion, a real good technician, is you follow your intuition, which is based on your experience. And when that doesn't work, then you have to question everything, regardless of logic. If it was logical, you'd understand it, right? You wouldn't be in the situation if it was logical. So there's a part here, there's an opportunity here for you to learn. So instead of cursing or getting frustrated and angry, we need to change our attitude and we need to go, challenge. Life is worth living because there are challenges. And it's when we overcome those challenges that we evolve and we grow. We become smarter. Our vision of the world gets a little broader. The possibilities of the world open up bigger than we thought before. And what is that worth? Now, to some people, they're like, that's all well and good, Carey, but I got work to do and I don't have time for this crap. Okay? But for people at home that are building along, if you're feeling frustrated, just stop for the day. You know, go do something else. Go to bed, go watch TV, get your mind off of it. A lot of times when I get stuck on something, it's when I'm focused on something else that suddenly, and I know many of you can relate to what I'm talking about, the answer is like, oh, try this. So I've been thinking a lot about this problem. I picked this computer up yesterday and I've been talking with the customer back and forth over, you know, maybe you should try this and maybe you should try that for about 4 or 5 days. And I've had a lot of time to think about everything that the customer can try to avoid having me pick it up. That's how terrible of a businessman I am. I got a computer problem, fix it yourself. I'm trying to save people money, and I think it's such a rewarding feeling when you fix it yourself, right? And you know what? This guy did everything I suggested, and it still didn't work. And at that point, I was like, you know, I'll pay you to fix it because I can't believe it. I got to see this to believe it. This doesn't make any sense. Now, I'm telling you, I've got nearly 30 years of experience in this business. And I still routinely will see problems a couple of times a year where I look at it and I go, how is this happening? Can somebody explain this to me? And how do I fix it? But I always know I can fix it. I used to work for a guy and his slogan was a terrible slogan. And it was, we can fix any problem you have if it takes every penny you have. Even if it takes every penny you have, we can fix it. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to grab a different solid state drive because I'm so convinced it's not the solid state drive. I have to now question everything I know from past experience. If it is the solid state drive, this will be a brand new experience and it will change my view on solid state drives. However, if I change the solid state drive and the behavior is the same, then it will reinforce what I've been saying about solid state drive. So one way or another, this is benefiting me as a person, as a technician, as it benefits my judgment to when I work on machines in the future that exhibit strange behaviors, what the possibilities could be, or how I should prioritize the testing of them. Does that make sense? So I've had this drive. You guys have seen this in other videos I've done, and it's just been sitting on a shelf. This is a Western Digital Black 500 gig drive. And so what we're going to do, we're going to cut power. Oh, it's already cut. We're going to change the drive out, and we're going to reinstall Windows again. And I honestly believe that this will make no difference whatsoever. However, I don't know what else is left. I have a screwdriver in here somewhere. What the heck, man? Where'd it go? Is it already out there? Jeez, I'm getting senile. Should be right here. That's exactly where it was. Right where I thought it should be. Okay. I got to nerd it up. Let's nerd it up over here. Take the solid state drive out. It's not a no-name brand solid state drive. Customer said it's an Intel, I think he told me a 665P, which is the latest and greatest from Intel. Yeah, it's exactly what he said. When the camera will focus, patience. Come on, camera. There it goes. Sort of. 1 terabyte. So for testing purposes, you have to understand that this can get really expensive when you start testing yourself. Right, I already explained the customer had to buy a different board, and they bought a separate CPU, which sucks. It's a $400 CPU in there. And hopefully, Best Buy will take back the CPU that he purchased. Otherwise, I suppose he could figure out a way to sell it. You know, it doesn't feel like it's in very well. I was about to say it's good enough, but it isn't. The heat sink's just a little in the way. Yeah, it's better. All right, flash drive. I'm going to go back to using my flash drive because I know my flash drive works. Even though I verified there's no problem with the customers, I just want to stick to as much of my own equipment to avoid any new problems. Or at least that's what I tell myself. And then let's turn this back on. And we'll flip you guys back over to camera 2 again so we can keep an eye on what's happening. Or I guess I just have to minimize myself here. There we go. That's off to a good start. Robert Cronin says instead of selling it, he might consider building another machine for a friend with that process. It must be a really good friend, right? Here, let me build a computer for you for free. Well, I guess you didn't say for free, but you know, I don't have many friends that have computer money laying around that necessarily want to build one at the same time I have one to sell. But if you're lucky, you know what? Maybe the stars will align. All right, same thing. We're going to no product key, Windows 10 Pro, next. Should see the Western Digital drive now instead of the and got to accept the end user license agreement. Next, custom install, next. Here we go. All right, a couple other contributions have come in that I've missed, so while we're waiting on that, let me give all you guys some shouts out. With 1,672 people watching live around the world. If you have not yet told me where you're watching me from, please tell me where in the world are you? What do we got going on here in the chat? Oh, sorry. It's going back to contributions. Toddy Lane contributed $5. He says, I've learned more from you than all my classes. You're the best, man. Toddy, you're such a nice thing to say. Thank you. Thank you. Thomas Beckenstowe has contributed $2. He says, keep up the great work. Excellent video today. Well, not done yet, but I like your positive thinking. You've got the right attitude. Michael Dane contributed $5. He goes, use your computer persuader. Yeah, I think we talked about that one. Alec Frater contributed £10 and says hello from Lancashire. Al McDonald contributed $5, and Hugh Wong also contributed $5 and said, sorry I'm late. Did I miss Words of Carey? My good friend Carey. I think yes, but probably not. Thank you. Dr. Gregorian, PhD, has contributed £4.99. He says, greetings from Yerevan, Armenia. It's 3 a.m. on Saturday, and I'm watching your very informative show. Stay positive and all the best. Right on. Agreed, and thank you. Thank you for your kind words and your support of the show. Charles McClintock contributed $2, and David Starbuck with a $20 contribution, which is that the one I said already, or was that a second one? That's a second one from David for $20. Thank you so much, David. Wow, it's very kind of you. 1,700 people watching in the chat right now, and we're going to verify if we can get any further past this Windows install after only changing the solid-state drive. How many of you think that it's going to work now? Tell me what you think. B.H. Ringer's watching us from Chester, Nova Scotia. Steve Shore's giving it odds. 80% fixed, 20% no. Fair enough. When my sister's editing, she says I make a lot of noises with my mouth. Would you rather I made noises with other parts of my body? Vince is watching from St. Louis. Hey, Vince, welcome in. We get a lot of yes, it will work, and no, it won't. Some people still think the board is bad, but it's a different motherboard. The board has been replaced, and it exhibits the exact same problem. Daniel Skinner thinks it's a power supply problem, and that's possible. In fact, Calvin still thinks it's a power supply. We got a couple people think it's a power supply. Gary Smith also thinks it's a power supply. A lot of people jumping on the power supply bandwagon. It froze. Okay. What did I tell you? You see, when this happens, and I'm sitting here and I'm telling you how good SSDs are and how reliable they are, and then I doubt myself because so many people were like, well, I had one fail and they're not as reliable as hard drives. I'm like, they're far more reliable than hard drives. I know they are. I do this all the time. And then enough people hammer on me and I doubt myself. And I'm like, all right, let's just try it and see because, you know. And then it turns out to be exactly as I assumed, but I don't have to assume anymore. Now I know. And what that does is it makes me even more arrogant the next time someone goes, it's probably the SSD. You understand? You're starting to get into my frame of mind. I'll be like, ah. All right. Could it be a thermal problem on the CPU? No, the CPU would not heat up and freeze up at the exact same point every single time. That's not happening. We have the real blessing here is that the problem is consistently reproducible, which ultimately will make it an easy problem to diagnose, truthfully. This, because we can recreate it consistently, if all the problems you can have, this is the kind you want. You don't want one that only happens sometimes, because that can take a lot of money and a lot of time to try and figure out. So I got a boot from, so what I want to do, before I put this solid state drive back in the package, is I want to boot from the Windows installation media, and I want to erase the partitions on the drive. So it'll, whoops, what did I just do? Gosh darn it. Is it booting from the flash drive? It is, okay. So I just want to take the partitions off of the drive so it'll be like new again. So I'm going to hit next and install. And those of you who are wondering, like if you were going to donate a computer and you wanted to erase the drive, it's not a secure erase, but it's good enough for most people. I just go through the Windows Media install, and all I have to do is go through the same routine. After I accept the end user license agreement, it's going to show me those partitions on a custom install here, and one by one I will delete each partition. And that's happening as soon as I hit OK. That's a permanent change. All that data is wiped out. So once I've erased them, and it goes back to just being drive 0 unallocated space, that is a completely wiped out drive, similar in condition to how it was when it was brand new in the box. But technically speaking, somebody who did data recovery on it could recover the data, but you'd have to be more than a newbie to do that. And it would have to be worth your time and effort. So at this point, with that done, I'm going to just forcibly shut off the computer, and I'm going to remove my flash drive for a moment. And I'm going to remove the solid state drive now, and we'll go back to full screen on. I need my producer here. I need somebody to do this for me. Go back to full screen on camera 1, and we are going to put the customer's solid state drive back in. Tomcats contributed $2. It's from the desert of Whispering Ranch, Arizona. Where's that at? Southern Arizona, Northern Arizona, Eastern, Western? Where you at? Michael Dane suggests a voodoo witch doctor for an exorcism to remove the evil spirits. I could use some evil spirits right about now, if you know what I'm saying. All right, let me put this back before I get so absent-minded that I forget where it is. And let's put the customer's solid state drive back in. There it is. Probably should use my glasses here. And I'm sorry, I know my back is to the camera. This hopefully will be something addressed soon, with having a camera operator who can move around me. Wouldn't that be good? Can you imagine having such professionalism in my videos? Who are you and what have you done with Carey? Okay, we're back there. Marty Wells contributed $20. Magda thinks I should check the RAM, and I'm with him, Magda. I think it's more likely RAM than power supply, but he's using the same RAM I use. So what we've got in here for RAM, we'll just verify it, but I can tell by looking at it. It's good old Corsair Vengeance. It's what you see me build with, and now specifically what it is with regards to the latency. It's 32 gigs, and it's C16 3200 speed RAM. It's the same RAM I've used in other builds, but I don't know. We can look to see that we have the latest BIOS update, which somebody else had recommended, and actually a couple people recommended that. And we can try taking the RAM module out and trying it with one module, but the customer says he already did all this. And assuming the customer is not lying to me, I'm probably wasting my time. Sometimes customers don't intentionally lie. Sometimes they think they did something or they didn't do it the same way I would do it. But I got a feeling from talking to this guy and seeing the quality of his work that he probably did it exactly the way I would do it. You know, you kind of can judge somebody not only by what they say, but by the actions that they have. And so far, his actions have all been dead on perfect. So I'm baffled. But if we take the customer's word for it, I'm going to put the RAM module back in. You know what? I'm just kind of curious here. Looking at some details. Now, normally, on a gigabyte motherboard, you would install your first two RAM modules in DDR socket 1 and socket 2. Is it socket 2? How does Gigabyte do that? Yeah. Socket 1 and socket 2 are the two gray sockets. Let's zoom in and show you. Socket 1 and socket, this is socket 1, this is socket 2, this is socket 3, and this is socket 4. And if you're only using two RAM modules, I always recommend using sockets 1 and 2. I always recommend using the gray. Now, I don't really think it matters. However, this problem, remember what I said about assuming, this problem is real. It's very real. And if something isn't the way I would do it, then it probably won't have the same results as the way I would do it. So if I were building this computer, I would have put the RAM module in these two sockets. That's the way I would have done it. Now the customer's solid state drive is back in. We'll turn the power supply back on, and we're going to fire the machine back up. And let's get the camera moved back a little bit here. And then we'll go to, let's just minimize me down here a little bit. Here we go. And then we'll also check the BIOS version. I'm just kind of curious what it's going to do at this point. So same thing. Again, as unlikely as I think something is, I still have to check it. So let's take a look at what BIOS version we've got in here. So let's hit reset, and we'll hit delete. 1,799 people are watching. Welcome in. Welcome in. Thanks for joining me. We're version F14. I think F14 is the latest on an H370 HD3, is it not? I'll let you guys tell me. So, CPU was swapped out, the motherboard was swapped out, the solid state drive is swapped out. The RAM still could have a compatibility problem, so I'm going to grab a spare set of RAM. No, you know what? I'll tell you what. I'm going to do the exact opposite, because sometimes I want to turn left when I should turn right, and I really think it's a RAM problem, and I think I'm going to question myself and say it's never the power supply, so I'm going to check the power supply, because if there's any reason for you to change something, it's the thing you think you shouldn't have to change. Sometimes, until it isn't. Is that clear? It's totally clear, Carey. Thanks for clearing that up. Geez, am I running out of spare power supplies? What's going on in my life? Oh no, I've got one. Funny, I have the same exact power supply right here. I'll be a glutton for punishment. We'll use the exact same one. Right here. It's his date in the BIOS. Oh, look at that. Look at that. Did it get brighter in here, or did a light come on over my head? That is entirely possible. Oh my gosh. Who saw that? Whoever you were. Good. Oh, wrong keyboard. You know, if I can't pick the right keyboard, I'm not going to notice the date. I got to tell you, I remember 3920 like it was yesterday. was I on drugs? Okay. 2/28/2020. Can you imagine if all of this trouble is because of the wrong date? How many people think that the system date could cause this problem? Speak now. Be heard. Show me how smart or not you may or may not be. Make your predictions. Look at your crystal ball. Stand upon your soapboxes and preach to me. What was I talking about? I said the time. It is 16:25. Oops. Come on, what am I doing? 16, tap, 25. Save and exit setup. It could be possible. I like the people who say it could be possible. So you're not committing. I like that. I like that you participated, but you won't commit. That's great. That's different. I can't see the screen. I got to remove myself. I got to move my fat head. All right, here we go. No, it can't be the date. You know why? It's a different motherboard. There's no way you got two motherboards that had screwed up dates. That's not going to be the fix. No, that's not going to be it. Remember, we swapped the board out. He wouldn't have done that to the board twice. So that doesn't make any sense. We're not going to get that lucky today. No. But that was a really, really sharp thing to notice. And it actually can make a difference. It's possible. It's possible. Big Dog says there's a new BIOS on the website. Let me take a look, because I always thought F14 was the latest. So let me take a real quick look to verify that the H370 HD3 BIOS is F14. I know F14 works with Windows 10, so it really shouldn't be a BIOS issue. And again, it's another motherboard, so even a corrupted BIOS wouldn't be a possibility on two motherboards in a row. Let's see, latest BIOS is F14. So, and we have F14. Sometimes the dates listed in the BIOSes are not the dates you see in the computer's BIOS, but that's a frequent inconsistency between all manufacturers. They all do that. I don't know exactly why that happens, and I don't really care. I only care about the BIOS version number. So let's reset the BIOS. Remember, this is a different motherboard. Okay, I want you to keep in mind that it is highly unlikely that the customer changed the BIOS in both systems. And because he's a newbie, relatively, he would have taken it out of the box, and he would have installed it and not modified it. Furthermore, when we spoke on the phone, I advised him, because his original motherboard was an open box return, that he doesn't know what the person that had the motherboard may have changed in the BIOS, and he should load setup defaults. So that was one of the first things I suggested. Now, that doesn't mean he followed through with it, but he probably did. So we'll go back into the machine again, and I probably missed my opportunity. I did. We're going to reset one more time. Hold on. Hang in there, guys. Let me get into that BIOS, and we'll load the defaults. Load optimized defaults. Yes. You're so smart. It will make no difference. I'm looking in my crystal ball, and it will make no difference. There's no way two motherboards exhibit the exact same symptom. There's no way. It's not the motherboard. It's no way two CPUs exhibit the same symptom. There's no way two solid-state drives exhibit the exact same error, repeatable over and over and over, and consistent. So, there's your lockup. I truly believe there's some incompatibility with this RAM. That's what I believe. That's why I'm going to change the power supply. Yes, that's what I said. Be smart enough to know to doubt yourself, especially when you've been wrong so far, right? Like, I'm saying not literally you, but me. Like, everything I'm guessing so far is wrong, consistently wrong. So if you keep doing the same thing over and over and expect different results, well, you know what they say about that, right? So I'm going to do everything opposite, because doing what I think I should be doing isn't working. It normally does. Today it isn't. Something's different. So now I have to change what I do to be different, which is go against my instincts and try the thing I'm absolutely certain it isn't, just so I can say, okay, I know for a fact it's not that. Because this, again, isn't making any sense. Now, if we change out the power supply and it works, then suddenly we go, oh, it makes sense, it was a bad power supply. But if we change it, it still doesn't work, we go, of course it wasn't the power supply. That's kind of the cycle of treating future experiences as though they're always going to be identical to past ones. And while it is often the case, it's not always the case. And that's why nobody knows everything. That's the problem. Each situation is unique, and it requires an open mind, but don't have an open mind so open that your brains fall out. Lyle is having some teeth removed. He's got some bad teeth. So he's going to be home shortly, and he's probably going to be pretty groggy and pretty sore. But I know when I throw this box down on the ground, he's not going to come and take it because he ain't here. Same power supply, brand new, out of the box. All right, are we going to break 2,000 people watching? Come on, we got 1,941 people watching. Welcome in, everybody. Carey, I think it's not installed in UEFI mode. No, it is in UEFI mode, or there wouldn't be 4 partitions. One of the ways you can tell if Windows 10 installs in UEFI mode is the number of partitions. In legacy mode, you'll have 2 partitions on the drive, and in UEFI mode, you'll have 4. And as you see, I keep removing 4 partitions. That assures me that we are correctly in UEFI. Carey just looked at supported memory for the motherboard. It doesn't list anything above 2666. Well, that's okay though, because that's not really necessarily relevant. Generally speaking, as long as it's at least that, faster memory should, look, the speed limit on the freeway says 65. My car can do 160, according to the speedometer. It's it should be the same. Because the RAM is capable of getting up to 3200, that RAM should run at 2666 as easily as my car can do 55. Now, trying to turn XMP on and run it at 3200 may be a problem. It may not be a problem. Just because it's not on the QVL list doesn't mean it's not going to work. Nor does it mean that it won't work at that speed, let alone work at all. However, it feels like a RAM problem to me. It does feel like a RAM problem. And so for that reason, I'm going to try the CPU, the power supply. Because I'm going to do the thing I think it's not. Because everything I think it is has been wrong so far. So therefore, I'm going to do something different. I'm going to go against my instincts. And I'm going to very easily, I don't have to take the old power supply out. I do have to unplug it, however. And I'm going to have to get up in this corner and yeah. Let's see what happens this time. So just for testing purposes only, and let me get this out of the way. I don't like where that is. I know there's a bunch of people that just went, phew, that was bothering me. Relax, I'm not a child. I might behave like one sometimes, but I'm not one, I assure you. Now, I'm going to go ahead and put the big power connector on first because it's super easy, and I like to do easy things. Big fan of easy. Because, you know, I like to feel like I've accomplished something when I'm getting frustrated at not accomplishing anything. So if I pick something easy to start with, it boosts my morale and it encourages me to pursue going forward. So we start with the easy thing. And if I'm having trouble with the easy thing, whew, then I'm really in trouble. That. And then here's our 8-pin CPU. These are the only two connectors we have to put on. Now, if we had a discrete graphics card, we'd have to provide power to that. But the graphics card we're using is built into the CPU, which helps our diagnostic. It obviously makes things a little faster, a little easier, and removes another point of potential issue, hence being easier. I'm going to have to take this heat sink off. I really didn't want to do that. I can't get in there. You know what, that's okay. It gives me an opportunity to make sure that the heat sink is installed correctly anyway. I really don't see that as being an issue here. Everything looks good, but what the heck. The side cooler is super easy to get off. And got a little kind of hung up on something right here. Yeah, that looks all good. In there, yeah. We can look and see how much thermal compound he's got on there, but at this point, that's just nitpicking because we're not at an issue here that would be the symptoms would result in what we're seeing from too much or too little of thermal compound. We're beyond that. He's got a lot on there. It's pretty drippy. There's a lot of thermal. There's way too much thermal compound on there. In fact, way too much. But that's okay. I mean, that's not the worst problem in the world, but it's not ideal, right? But that's not going to cause the problem. There's way too much. Way too much. Okay? Okay. I'm going to do something I never do. Get some work done. I'm going to wipe this compound off of here. He's got enough on the heat sink. I'm going to have to clean this up anyway, and whatever I take off now will be less I have to take off later. Oh, that's goopy. Way too much thermal compound here. Way too much. Did I say it was way too much? It's way too much. Holy smokes, it's a lot. I'm not going to make it perfect because I'm just going to take it back apart again, but there's so much on here. Well, it's all on the edges. Hold on a second. It's really bugging me. It's bugging me, can you tell? Next. It's messy. Good enough. Good enough. I'm going to lay the case down onto its side. I'm sorry, guys, you're not going to be able to see that, but to put the heat sink back on, I've got to work with gravity here. So I've learned that fighting gravity is a losing battle. For me, anyway. And I know that power supply is going to kind of hang a little bit there, and that's okay. That's okay, as long as my drink is clear. Okay. So, what'd you do today? Because I've got nothing done. I am no further than where I started. Well, I kind of am. I know what isn't the problem, which is leaving fewer and fewer things to be the problem, right? Everything we diagnose that is successful leads us closer to what the problem is, right? Every wrong answer, well, I don't know if I say wrong answer, but every component that we verify is working is one less component. I'm pretty sure I used the same exact RAM on the same exact motherboard in a previous build. I don't know if any of you can verify that, but I think this customer literally bought the same exact parts. But maybe I didn't. Maybe the link to the part went to a similar Corsair Vengeance RAM. Like when Amazon runs out of a part, they might recommend the next best one available. So if I had used, let's say, a different speed of Corsair Vengeance, and then you click on the link in the video notes and it takes you to Amazon, and they don't have that specific one, but they have one that's ideal, similar but a different speed, that could have happened as well. We'd have to go back and look through my video history. Oh, look at this. 2,001 people are watching now. I don't think I've ever had that many people watching. I've been on YouTube for 12 years, and I've never had 2,000 plus people watching me live. This is a new world record for me personally, and as you can see, an overnight success. And there it just dropped to 1995. I just ruined it. He's not, no, too late. It's too late. It already happened. It already happened. You can't take it from me. Nope, no takesy backsies. I can say it happened now. I don't know who I'm telling. Those people already left. It's still kind of funny. Oh, he's run this cable an interesting way. I definitely don't recommend that. He's got the power cable running through the bracket. We want that bracket flush against the heatsink. Okay. Okay means I got it back on. It fits. I got no spare parts. Put everything back. And taking them apart's real easy. It's putting them back together that's challenging. Sometimes. Okay. Keyboard. Mouse. Brand new power supply. How many of you think that this computer's going to work now? Speak up. Wow, 2,022 people watching. New world record. Every time the number goes up by one. Hey, everybody stop and let's say a new world record. Let's take a shot. David Starbuck, again, has contributed $20. Hey, thank you, David. He says, back at Yamati. Oh, I guess I must have missed some stuff here. Some of you guys are having a conversation I'm not paying attention to. Madi contributed $10 and says, wee. Look, you know, sometimes when you're frustrated and you need to cry, that's the best time to just give life the middle finger and laugh because you're not supposed to. Rochester, New York, 87 has contributed $5. He says, it's weird when you installed your SSD. It was UEFI, and now it looks like a legacy. Was his installer in legacy mode? Oh, you know, I don't know. But I saw 4 partitions, so I don't know where you guys are coming up with legacy mode that way. Glenn Davies says, I noticed when you went back into the BIOS just now to load the defaults that the time was all screwed up again. Yeah, there might be something to that. Joe Walsh has contributed $4.99. He says, thank you for all the amazing content. Well, thank you, Joe Bush, and thanks for your contributions via PayPal as well. Rochester, New York, 87 contributed $5 and said it's his date in the BIOS. I guess I missed that from earlier. Samuel Ramos has contributed $19.99. Madi contributed $20, and then David said, I see your $20 and match it. Get to the range, Carey. Turning money into smoke and noise is the best therapy. Thanks, all of you. Wonder Woman says, could it be a bad case causing the motherboards to make inappropriate contact and shorting the board? How do you define inappropriate contact? There's a Roger Ailes joke in there somewhere. I once worked with a guy who said, I once worked with another technician who said at his previous job, and if you've watched my channel, I've told this story before, that sometimes they would get bad cases. And I said, like maybe I wasn't really listening, but I heard that and I was like, I'm sorry, what? Did I hear what I think I heard? And he says, because I'm short, he says, yes, yeah, sometimes we get bad cases. They get bad sheet metal. I said, what? He goes, yeah, we've had problems where we take the board out and put it into another case and the problem goes away. And I said, can I have those cases? You guys don't want them? That's, what? No, it's not. Look, there's a lot of things it can be, right? There could be a standoff back there that the customer put in that's hitting the back of the board. That's certainly possible. But the case, and again, the customer followed everything. He bought all the right parts. The case doesn't require you to add any standoffs. They're already there. The board already lines up with them. And if he followed along and did everything the way I've already shown it, then he should not have used the 2 standoffs. I think you get 2 extra standoffs, but he might have, and I would have to take the back panel off and double check that. But yes, that is possible, but it seems not probable. But the power supply doesn't seem probable either. And before I test this, before we see, I just want to mention, this is why power supply testers are useless. Because that power supply works. As far as we can tell, it powers on, the fan spins, it provides 12 volts, 5 volts, 3 volts. It does what a power supply is supposed to do. We've verified that. And a power supply tester will tell us the same. And if this turns out to be a bad power supply, then the only way we would know that is by replacing it. A power supply that, if this is bad, Every power supply tester on the market will tell you this power supply works. So now you would have said, well, my power supply tester says it's not the power supply. And you would not have swapped it because you would reason to say if the power supply tester says it's good, it's good. And the problem is a power supply tester can tell you it's good when it's still not good. Now, it may be good, but I'm not going to rely on a tester that's, a simple voltage meter to tell me about amperage draw. Now, those things do exist, and they're very expensive, and they cost a lot more than I could buy lots and lots of spare power supplies. And I can swap them out and replace them much faster than the time it takes to get the little probes out and hook up the tester and measure everything one by one. I don't have that kind of time. I don't have that kind of patience. And I don't think this is going to make a difference. But if it does, I just want to lay that out there. That's how far in advance I'm thinking, just in case. So let's put me down over here, or put me up over here, I should say. We've got voltage, turn it on, and hit the power button. Fans are spinning. Let's see what happens. $2,071, all right, take a shot. Take a shot. Mommy, what's a shot? 2,074 people watching. 72. All right. What's going to happen? Appears that we have a fine power supply. Let's talk for a minute. You and I need to talk. Let's turn that off. There's only one realistic thing left that can be causing this problem. And you and I both know what it is. I have some different RAM here. I bought it on sale. I keep it in inventory. I don't like to buy things like RAM. The prices are too volatile. And I don't, so memtest 86, according to the customer, he followed my advice and ran memtest 86 and it passes fine. He's already removed one RAM module and tried to reinstall Windows, and it did the same thing. Remove the other RAM module and tried to install Windows with the one he took out, put back in. Same problem. I don't think that RAM works with this board. And I don't know, unless there is a standoff back there that he put in that he wasn't supposed to. But that would still be weird that it's shorting out in the same exact spot on two different boards in exactly the same way, which, I mean, the parts aren't moving, so I guess that is possible. Could he have done that? Or is it the RAM? I think it's the RAM. In fact, my first thing was the RAM, and that's why I told him to remove a module. I also asked what make and model of RAM, and it is the make and model of RAM I use, but perhaps not that speed. So I've got something here. If you want to look at the specs on this, this is also 3200 speed RAM. Okay, and a little bit, it's a different manufacturer. And remember, even if the motherboard says it only supports up to 2666, RAM that can go faster than 2666 should also run at 2666. That, it seems hard to believe but I don't know what else to do. We've got nothing to lose. But you can see how this can get really expensive for a first-time builder when you're self-diagnosing. There gets to be a point where you've got to say, at this point, it's cheaper, and it makes sense to bring somebody else in. And in fairness, he did try to get me to take this on a week ago. And I said, now this is something simple, save your money, do it yourself. And in most cases, it would have been fine. However, this is not most cases, unfortunately. And I did suggest that if his CPU was bad, he should buy a lottery ticket. But it turns out his CPU was not bad. So at that point, probably needs to save his money on the lottery ticket. Okay, how many of you think the system will boot now that we've changed out the RAM module? We have 2,130 people watching live around the world. If you've not yet shouted out where you're watching me from in the world, please do so. Please tell me in the chat where in the world you are watching me. It means a lot to me to know, this idiot in his kitchen can reach out to the world live. It's pretty cool. It's a way that I can hear back from people, I appreciate it. It's how I know I'm being heard, and that means a lot to me. Okay, let's, here they are, they're saying yes, they're saying no, they're saying it's, look at this, Ireland's in the house, Scotland, Vegas, Mexico. Somebody said, I don't know, Carey. I don't know what it is. Why are you asking me? I don't need this kind of pressure. Chicago, South Carolina. Look at all this planet Earth. What am I, born yesterday? You're not from planet Earth. Alabama and Belgium, Sheffield in the UK, and Portugal. Portugal is my mother's side of the family is Portuguese. Wyoming and New Zealand and London and Kentucky and Raleigh, North Carolina and Montreal and Oklahoma and Melbourne, Australia, more Australia, and Michigan, my home state, Michigan, with my Michiganders. The Philippines and Seattle and Erie, Pennsylvania. Guildford in the UK, Okinawa, Japan, really? That's cool. A couple in California, Ohio, Maine, Texas, Italy, Mississippi. Somebody lives in BIOS. Oh, wait, that might not be right. All right, here we go. Is this it? Is this what it amounts to? Just taking a minute. I know the answer is this far away, okay? This is what I know. The answer is right there. And I'm about to find out. So I'm just taking a minute. Just soak that up for a minute. Because no matter what, whatever happens next, if this isn't it, the next thing I fix will be it. The next thing I try will be the fix, if it's not this. So I just want to take a minute. You ready? We've earned this. You've been with me now for nearly 2 hours as we've replaced nearly every single component on the unrepairable computer. Let's face it, the guy who put this together is like, this isn't fixable. And who can blame him for, I mean, he didn't literally say that, but when you throw in the towel and you ask for help, at that point you're like, it's beyond me, and there's nothing left to check. When all of the testing passes, only replacement verifies. Tests do not verify in the sense of testing software, in the sense of testing tools. Unless you have very, very expensive and highly specialized equipment, the only cheap an effective means to diagnose a computer is through parts swapping. It is perhaps doesn't require the level of education that once was required in diagnosing, but in today's world, in the United States, it's all about time. Labor is very expensive, and you want to get, and there's a lot of people waiting, and we want to help everybody as quickly as possible. So, with all due respect for people who say I don't repair things, I'm just a part swapper, I used to repair things in that sense. It doesn't pay anymore. It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't get as much work done. I don't make as much money, and I don't think it's a measure of intelligence. Being successful to me is a measure of intelligence. Okay. Turn that on. Here we go. I don't know what's going to happen. $2,226 people are tuned in, holding their breath all, here we go, is it going to work? 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 Wah, wah. I love my job. I love my job. I love my job. Keep telling yourself, I love my job. Okay, folks. I went back there to get something, and I completely forgot what I went back there for. This is preposterous. Okay. It is possible that the installation is corrupt, right? And that these tests are not valid because we might be hitting a part of the install that's incorrect. So for the sake of just being complete, I'm going to reinstall Windows 10 one more time. Although I don't truly believe it will make a difference. Nothing I believe will make a difference is happening at this point anyway. So what difference does it make? I want to try it one more time with a fresh install of Windows 10. Check the CPU. CPU has already been replaced. The motherboard has been replaced. The power supply has been replaced. The RAM has been replaced. The solid state drive has been replaced. The installation media has been replaced. Do you understand when I told the guy, I'll pay you to fix this? Because I didn't, I'm like, there's gotta be, there's a piece of this he's not telling me. There's some piece of information, but I'll be darned, but everything is exactly the way he says. So, it's a new CPU, it is a new motherboard. So we don't have to worry about a bad CPU or bent pins because those parts have been replaced. And the exact same symptoms, why those parts were replaced, still exist after the parts were replaced. Ooh, that looks like it installed in legacy mode and not UEFI mode. That's what you guys are talking about, huh? That might be some setting in the BIOS that's incorrect then. When I loaded the optimized defaults, I wonder if it went back to legacy mode. Let's reboot this and take a look here. Does this board have a dual BIOS? What difference does it make? He swapped the board. It is an entirely, you understand this is the second motherboard? Or am I not being heard? It says it's in UEFI. Everything looks good there. Fast boot is disabled. That looks good. That doesn't really matter. We're going to use internal graphics on that, but it's automatic anyway. That doesn't matter. We're not plugged into that. So, yeah, everything looks good in here. And we'll save and exit. and then it should automatically boot to the flash drive. Since I deleted the partitions on the solid state drive, there's no other thing it can boot from except the flash drive. So it should just do that automatically now. The date is 39/20 again. You know what? You guys got me. If the date keeps going back to 39/20, hold on, let me go back. Let me take another look. That is a symptom of a short, potentially. If the date keeps returning to this odd jumble, then the customer may have a piece of metal behind the motherboard, be it a standoff or something else that is making contact. That would result in short-circuiting a part of the board that could potentially result in this, although that's very strange. You know, just for fun, let's turn XMP on. Yeah. I'm crazy like that. I'm going to turn XMP on. You can't stop me. I'm a rebel. Let's change the date to, I don't know, today maybe? I really don't care about the time. It doesn't really matter. And that looks good. Save and exit. 2,230 people watching live around the world. How cool is that, man? Far out. Kids still say that? All right, let's see what happens. Mad Mike says, I said that 30 minutes ago. Well, I'm sorry, I didn't see your comment, Mad Mike. If I was Mike, I'd be mad too. All right, end user license agreement. If you don't know how to install Windows 10 by now, I don't know how many more times I got to show you. But we're going to do this all day, if that's what it takes. Install new media. Already did that. Could it be the reset button is stuck? Well, it is possible that one of the front port headers or something plugged into the board is shorting it. So the front port audio port, the front port USB port, as well as the front port power switch, reset switch. Any of those things are possible. Yes. But before I go through that, it feels like a RAM issue to me. I can't emphasize how instinctive that is in me, that it's RAM. And I'm really sort of gobsmacked that putting the new RAM in, I really honestly internally thought that was going to fix it. And we were going to say, hey, you know, we did it. The fact that it hasn't happened, I have to laugh because there's just not much left. And at this point now, my theory is something is shorting out the motherboard. Whether that is a connector plugged in or a standoff behind the board, it seems unlikely that two different sets of RAM from two different manufacturers results in the exact same error unless the installation of Windows 10 was corrupt, and no matter what we did after that, by trying to be lazy and trying to continue to use the current Windows 10 install, that it was always going to be corrupt. You know, so by reinstalling it with the new RAM, I'm removing the option of corruption, okay, as a potential. So I thought the next thing I did would guarantee to fix it, but then I didn't think of this. So if it's not this, then it'll be the next thing after that. Rinse and repeat until you, believe me, there's one thing I know for sure. What's going to fix this will be the last thing I check. You can quote me on that. Oh. Oh. Carlos Navarro in the chat room says it's the backplate. If the customer installed the side cooler with the backplate backwards, with the foam pads not touching the back of the board, that would explain everything perfectly. Wait a minute, what just happened? We never got this far before. Look at this. XMP fixed it? No, XMP didn't fix it. Changing the RAM and doing the reinstall. If I turn XMP off, I'm sure it'll still work. It was changing the RAM. There's something incompatible, it seems, with the RAM. Rick Lakes is like, okay, I'm confused. Libra Morangelov says, Y3K here. Please explain the back plate again. All right, well, we're going to check that here in a minute, but when you install a side cooler, there's a big metal back plate, and one side of it has foam pads. It's important when you install, and I always emphasize this, I've only done it like, 40 times, that the foam pads go against the back of the board. If you flip the back plate to the other way and the foam pads are not touching the board, then the metal of the back plate is hitting the metal on the back of the board, which could cause a short. But we're in Windows, ladies and gentlemen. We are in Windows. Now, Gary says, try it with the old RAM again. Well, hold on, let's not get ahead of ourselves. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. It does appear to be an incompatibility with the RAM so far. However, I want to just power this off for a moment, and then we're going to come back around to full-size camera 1 here. And let's turn this off, and let's remove the Windows 10 media, and let's disconnect the HDMI, and let's get this panel removed. Because with this panel removed, I can spin the machine around, and I can look to see if there's any, I can tell from looking at it backwards, from the backside in, if there is a standoff where there isn't supposed to be one, and we can verify that the back plate is on in the proper orientation. So let me just set this down. Oh, I think Lyle is home. Let me set this down and spin this around. We'll look at it together. We'll reveal this together. Let's see what we got back here. The back plate is on 100% correct. So the person who built this followed the instructions correctly. With standoffs, we can see the back of the standoff. We should be able to see the back of the standoffs. He's got one here, which is correct. Yes. There's an option to put one here, and it's not there. There's an option to put one here, and it's not there, which is good. Well, there's not an option. That's the ones built into the case are not optional. So I'm just looking for where the holes are on the back of the case to see if there's any, the back of screws sticking out, to make sure that nothing's shorting out. And for that, I need to just look with my glasses, and I think I need a flashlight just to, avoid having to take the board out and look at it manually. I should be able to do a little shortcut and look here. So that's a built-in standoff, that's a built-in, and that's a built-in. That's built in, and that's one that's screwed in, but it's it's in the right place, and it's, again, built that way from the manufacturer. There's an option for standoffs here. There's a both empty. That one is empty. I'm sorry, that's built in, and that's built in. So there's no shortage, no shorting happening here. That all looks correct. Yeah. Yeah, everything looks good here. Didn't cut his pigtails. I do believe we have some RAM issue here. So here's what I'm going to do. We're going to hook things back up, and we'll put it back in. We'll take XMP off. Well, there's Lyle. There's Lyle boy. Give me just a second, guys. I'll be right back. All right, sorry. I had to find out Lyle's status. They took out 3 teeth, and he's pretty drugged up. He just kind of wandered through here, and he's probably hurting. But you know what? I know those teeth were hurting him for a while. I could tell the way he was eating. So it'll be worth it. He'll be okay. Okay, so we definitely have a RAM issue. So what I want to do, just to show you it's not XMP related, I was just being silly. We're going to plug we're going to turn XMP off, and that's all I'm going to do, is just make that one little change. So we'll hook this back up one more time. Let's flip that on. Okay, and then we'll go back to camera 2. Whew, here we go. Turn this on. And yeah, we're just going to go back to memory settings, and we're going to turn the profile off. We'll put it back to disabled. I have to use the right, I keep grabbing the wrong mouse. I'm going to use the right mouse. Okay, so that's disabled. System is in UEFI mode, isn't it? Yeah, it all says UEFI. I don't know why we're not booting to UEFI. That's all right. I don't want to make too many changes. You just make one little change. Let's make sure everything still works. I'm sure it's going to work fine. Okay. That looks pretty happy to me. Okay. So we're going to shut it back off. Now again, I only want to make one change at a time. If we're working to earn money, we don't need to take our diagnostic any further than this. And I think sometimes I lose viewers on this point, because in many cases, I'm done. My job is done. The computer's fixed. I don't need to take it any further. But I know it drives some viewers nuts, because they want to know why. And I don't get paid to know why. I get paid to get things fixed quickly and move on to the next one. But today, I'm going to do things a little differently, personally, because I want to know why this one's weird. Usually I don't care why. Usually it's some weird thing. I'll never ever see it again. It's a fluke. It's a strange, weird, one time only, once in a lifetime, kind of an event. And to waste time wondering, is it this or is it that, really results in no useful benefit in the future, usually. Having said that, I myself am genuinely curious, and I suspect when I put the old RAM back in, one of two things is going to happen. Either it will boot to the desktop, or it'll freeze up. If it boots to the desktop, then I need to try and reinstall Windows again, because it may be a part of the Windows install that the bad RAM is being affected by. And to verify that, that's my thought process. Put the old RAM back in, and if it boots, then try and reinstall Windows anyway, and see if Windows will reinstall. If Windows does not reinstall, take that RAM out, put the other RAM back in, and try and reinstall again, leaving XMP off, and that's the only thing we're changing. And I suspect then Windows will work. And that's where you have this really weird RAM compatibility issue that is very, very difficult, obviously, to isolate, because it kind of works. And when something kind of works, it's very, very difficult to isolate it. So let's make sure this is turned off. And let's pull this RAM. Okay. Now we really only need one stick of RAM in here for this, but I'm just gonna put everything back how it was and make no other changes. Oops. You gotta put it in the right direction, Carey. Oops. Documentation. You know who that's for. Not me. Power supply's on. Switch. Fans running. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, just because it boots to the desktop doesn't necessarily mean it's fixed. But we'll just find out. Let's just see what it does. Ooh, that's a little fast, wasn't it? That was really, like, frighteningly quick. I'm losing viewers because it works now. I fixed it too soon. Okay, so we're going to shut this off. And we're going to plug this back in. So this is where it gets tricky, and I want you to pay particular attention to this. If you built somebody a computer and you had this issue and you sort of band-aided it by putting some RAM in temporarily, and then you said, well, now I don't know, and you put the old RAM back in and it still boots the desktop, you probably gave the computer, you probably gave that customer a broken computer that you're going to have to fix for free in the near future, because you never had a problem getting to a pre-existing desktop. The problem you were trying to fix was getting Windows 10 installed. Once you switched out the RAM and Windows 10 installed, whatever the thing that was hanging up Windows 10 installation is still a problem if you put the RAM back in. In theory, when I try to reinstall Windows 10 right now, it should not install. It should lock up with the original RAM back in it. Now, one of the reasons we're not in UEFI mode is if I'm selecting, you see there's two SanDisk extremes. There's a legacy and a UEFI boot. If I don't choose the right one here, then Windows is going to install in whichever mode. If I choose this one, Windows will install in legacy mode, and if I choose this one, it's UEFI mode. We obviously want UEFI mode. It's more modern. Regardless of how it was, it doesn't matter. UEFI is what we want, and sometimes when I'm going through this, I'm going so quick, I should have been paying more attention to that. We're going to just repeat the same because you guys wanted to see Windows 10 installed again. You weren't quite sure how to do it, right? Sure. Windows 10. Yeah, I was in legacy mode. Not that it really matters that much. It really is not a big deal. But given a preference, I prefer the newer UEFI mode to the older legacy mode. So we'll let that run. And why is it taking so long? Should have been doing something by now. There it goes. It's just slow. I mean, for me, I'm impatient. So, okay. How's your day? William Johnson says the voltage changed when you changed the RAM. Where did you see that at? What are you talking about? Doesn't your Lyle need a cookie right now? If you had a tooth pulled, let alone 3, do you want to eat something crunchy? I mean, really? I'm pretty sure he's going to need some soft food for a couple weeks. Oh, Brad is saying the voltage in the XMP. Well, yes. Yeah, in order to draw more performance, we draw more power. When you push the gas pedal down in your car, you get worse gas mileage, right? I mean, that's going to be the same regardless. That shouldn't make a difference. In other words, you should be able to plug in memory from a manufacturer like Corsair into a motherboard manufacturer like Gigabyte, plug it in and power it with an EVGA power supply in a Corsair case with an Intel SSD, and it should just work. You should not need to worry about these kind of compatibility issues. We should be long past those days, and for the most part, we are. This is very, very strange. MJ Puck says 1.2 volts at 2133 is the default. The XMP file the XMP profile switched it up to 1.34. First day with my new lips. The XMP profile switched it up to 1.35 volts at 2666. Yes, yes. But it's supposed to be at 1.35 volts at 2666, and it's supposed to be at 1.2 volts at 2133. That's where it's supposed to be. There's nothing unusual about that. There's nothing concerning about that, and there's no reason to believe that that has anything unrelated to do with changing XMP. It's not. There's no reason to believe that the default should be higher at the slower speed. It should just plug and play. In other words, the J, what do they call it? The chip on the JD. The chip has an identifier on it that tells the motherboard what its parameters are, and the motherboard reads that and then configures itself. And when a major motherboard manufacturer and a major RAM manufacturer are not following the standard as defined by the industry, then you run into these kind of problems. So one of these two is at fault here for not following the standard. JEDEC, thank you, or JDEC. That is you can look that up if you want to read more about it, but it's essentially, it's a little chip on the RAM that tells the motherboard so that you as the end user don't have to punch all these little numbers in with voltage and speed and latency and all that other stuff. I'm just going to say stuff to keep it simple. That looks like it's in UEFI mode because you see how the screen resolution changed there. But we've gotten this far before. David Starbuck is pretty much sponsoring today's show. Thank you, David. He contributed $20. He says, good job. Well, what have I done, David? Other than just confused myself. This should not be working right now. We just put it back the way it was. So, oh, hold on a minute. We didn't do a new install with the new power supply, did we? We kept the old install from the old power supply, right? I didn't try a reinstall with the new power supply. So if I hook up the old power supply and try and reinstall Windows 10, maybe it'll recreate that again. This may not be a RAM issue. This still may be a power supply issue. David says, I know what you mean. Welcome to today's show, brought to you by David Starbuck. Do you get free coffee? You go in there and go, hey, my name's David Starbuck. Look at my ID. I own this place. It's named after me. Does that work? You think you know what it is, and then it turns out you really don't know what it is. And if that's not a metaphor for life, I don't know what is. Well, we know it's none of the front port umbilicals, right? I mean, at this point, we can say it's not the case, it's not the back plate, it's not the CPU, it's not the motherboard, it's not the SSD. And it's not the Windows 10 install with regards to, the previous installs that were attempted or the media. So, if there's a short inside of the power supply, wouldn't that be interesting if by simply plugging the new power supply in, if that date goes back in the BIOS, huh? That would be an interesting diagnostic to remember. Very unlikely to ever see that again, but if you were to see something like that, maybe the instinct should be, when looking for a short, when we're talking about power, it's possible something in the power supply is shorted. Now, if, let's say, for example, this guy was building this computer and he had the power supply out and he dropped a screw inside of it, chances are there'd be a big bang and he'd blow a circuit, which is one of the reasons why we keep the power supply fan facing down when we're installing. However, if there's something in this power supply, which I would have to take it out and shake it and see if I hear anything rattling around in there, that would be kind of interesting, wouldn't it? So Windows installed just fine. Everything appears to be fine. The RAM appears to be fine. Everything is working like it should. And the only thing different right now is this power supply. I just want to keep emphasizing that. So let's shut it back down and let's put the old power supply back on it and then let's reinstall Windows again. We have to be able to recreate this problem now to identify what the actual solution is. Even though, if you were in business, this is a complete waste of time. If you're, well, maybe not. Maybe not. Because if you're in business and you're giving the customer back their old power supply, you're just going to get the system back. So I take that back. So in this case, it's beneficial that we verify we fixed it. And in this case, booting to Windows is not enough verification. So a very difficult issue to resolve, and maybe that guy should buy a lottery ticket. So we're going to take this power supply back out. Come on. And you see how fast it is? I bet you I can change a power supply out faster than you can plug in a power supply tester. And I bet my results of my test are more accurate and less expensive and take less time. Just saying. I'm old school that way. I do work. I'm old school like that. Now, I don't have to take the power supply out. Another old school method is just do this. And if you hear something obviously rattling around, you know, find it, whatever it is, wherever it is, find it and remove it. In 1991, when my first computer job was at TriStar Computers in Chandler, Arizona, before the computer would ship, the guy who would put and these are big 3-foot tall old school AT style towers, would pick it up and shake it. Because sometimes in the assembly line process, someone would drop a screw or, you know, whatever. The assembly line workers are, well, some assembly line workers don't pay too much attention, and screws would fall out. And then, of course, if the reason we had to do that was because they would ship a computer to somebody and they'd get it and it would short out because a screw would get somewhere it wasn't supposed to be. I gotta take the heatsink back off so I can get that cable back on. Bummer. It's not difficult, it sometimes just gets a little tedious, you know? You know what I'm saying? It's a little tedious sometimes. It's the same thing over and over and over and over again. And for testing purposes, I could have just grabbed a stock Intel cooler. It would have been good enough until I got it figured out, if I really thought this through. I honestly didn't think, I mean, I knew it was going to be an interesting video because that's why I titled it the way I titled it. I knew what I was getting into, but I honestly didn't think it was going to go on this long. A little overconfident. That's all right. That's all right. And of course, even if I had solved it, I still need to reapply thermal compound. But I don't want to do that until I know for a fact I'm done taking this heatsink off and on, you know? And I don't mind working, I just don't want to work any harder than I have to if I can avoid it. I want to work smarter. Just noticed a contribution in there from Zero Core, contributed $2. It says, have yourself a Coke, Carey. Hey, thank you, Zero Core. All right, I think I'm working up a sweat now, guys. Doesn't take much these days. Sure, it's my Coke and chips diet. It's good for the heart. Let's see. I really can't find a good angle to find a good angle to get this connector on. All right. Okay. Back in business. All right, so I want to reinstall Windows again to see if it's power supply related. Remember, booting to the desktop doesn't mean we fixed anything. We weren't able to get to this level before. So we're going to shut this down. I'm going to plug in Windows 10 again. Turn it back on, hit F12. Make sure we boot to the UEFI version. Product key, Windows 10 Pro. All right, so we're going to let that install, and we'll see if it locks up. If it locks up, I know for a fact now it'll be the power supply. If it doesn't lock up, then I think we've put everything back. I don't know what's left, but I think I've earned a little green Gatorade time now. It all worked after you took off the back. I never took off the back plate. Not sure what video you're watching. Joe Justice says Uncle Carey's Windows 10 Optimizer and Uncle Carey's Windows 10 Netfix tool both work good. Hey, thank you, Joe. Rochester, New York 87's contributed $5. He says, Carey, could the bad date been pushing to Windows when it was being installed and Windows thought it was 3020, caused the date fixed, it installed? We already tried fixing the date 2 times before and it kept going back. So I'm not exactly sure. We can play around with that a little bit, certainly. If after this install, but remember, and I want to emphasize this, this is the second motherboard, right? So there's no way the date would be the same from two different motherboards. And something, when you exhibit the same symptom over and over, between two motherboards, two CPUs, two sets of RAM, those are not the cause of the problem. It would be statistically unlikely that you would have parts fail in precisely the same part in the same way and the same system. It's very unlikely. Like, I'm talking the odds of like walking down the street and being hit by a meteor would be more likely than that. So I kind of feel like it should be the power supply. But what I feel and what it is may be two entirely different things. Fred Garner has contributed $24.99. He says, $25. Here you go, Carey. Bless you. Have a good one. Right on. Thank you, Fred. Kenny says he doesn't believe it's the power supply. Could the side panel have shorted out the battery on the motherboard? No. The side panel, if it was dented maybe, but the side panel's on straight and it would have to be inverted for that to happen. There's that much space between the back of the side panel and the motherboard tray, and it would hit the back of the motherboard tray, not the back of the motherboard anyway, right? We can turn it back around and look at it here in a minute, but I want to pay attention to see if this locks up here. So again, we tried different USB flash drives, different types of installs of Windows 10, and the same problem over and over and over again. I don't think we ever got this far before. No, we didn't get this far before. So we're on the original power supply with the original RAM. Everything's back the way it was originally, and now it's working. So, I don't have an answer. A bad Windows install. We installed Windows about 10 times, Kenny, and we installed it from 2 different flash drives, and it was the same exact problem in the same exact place from 2. One Windows install was one the customer made, and the other is the one I use over and over and over, and the one I'm using now is the same one we used before that didn't work. So no, that's not correct. Something somewhere. Dan Vinning says it was a fat electron stuck somewhere. Malcolm thinks it's that date issue related. I think it is related to the date issue, but the question is what caused the date issue, right? Something caused that to happen. The date would not have changed on, I want you to listen to me, please. The date would not have changed on both motherboards automatically. You got to remember, there's 2 different motherboards. Same exact symptom. So what would cause the date to change on both motherboards? A short circuit, like in the power supply, would explain that type of behavior, or a short circuit somewhere. Could it have been a badly seated power connector? Again, 2 different motherboards, which means he had to remove the power connector off of one board and plug it into another board. Is it likely he would have reseated the connector precisely in the incorrect way, the same way? Could he have done it twice? No. No. He could have done it once, but he wouldn't have done it twice. You would have to precisely seat it in such a way that it still powers on, but gets to a certain point of the Windows install where it stops. And when I pulled those connectors off, they looked like they were pretty good. But regardless, again, two different motherboards, same exact symptom. So we've got to ask ourselves, what has changed here? Hugh Wong says CMOS battery. Two different motherboards, Hugh, which means two different CMOS batteries. Come on, guys. I need you on board here with me. Two different motherboards. Same exact symptoms. Two different complete installs of Windows 10, two different flash drives, two different CPUs. Was the RAM not seated right? I reseated it. The customer reseated it multiple times on two different motherboards. Same exact error. Jack Hammer says, the only thing you've changed at this point is you remove the back panel. And when you remove the back panel, Windows installs. That's an interesting observation. And if we look at the back panel, and again, we can spin the computer back around. Arnold says your frustration is beginning to show. Maybe it's time to take a break. Honestly, I am a little frustrated, but what I'm a little more frustrated at are people who aren't keeping up. That it's kind of frustrating because I don't know why they're not. If you've been here or if you've missed anything, you can rewind. So I don't understand. That's where my frustration is, that why would you make a suggestion when you know that's not possible? So, it's not like it's one person, it's multiple people saying it, and it's grabbing my attention, and I'm like, stop. We've already covered this, we've already been there, we've already done all that. I did shake the power supply, and I was thinking that myself, if there's something in there. That's true, and I did think about that. But if I look on the back here, there's nothing really for the back panel to short out against. There really isn't. Everything's exactly the way it should be. There's nothing for that back panel to hit. You can't rewind a live video going on for over. Yes, you can. Shut off the chat. Well, quite often there are very intelligent and well thought out things mentioned in chat, and they get diluted and walked over and drowned out by people not so thoughtful or considerate who think they're being helpful when it's sort of like, be kind and rewind. How appropriate. Greg says one of my viewers used his ESP and fixed it for me. Could it be an I/O shield ground pin? No, there were two different motherboards. Two different motherboards. So we can look. There's only on this motherboard. You know, you've seen me struggle a bit with that little. There's only one grounding strap here on this I/O shield, and it's right over the red USB port, and it's there correctly. There's no other ones on this I/O shield. That's the only one, and let me see if I can see it's in there, but I can look at it from the other angle. I'm sure it's okay. Let's take a look anyway. And that wouldn't explain why it's working now, because I haven't touched any of that. Yeah, it's fine. Yeah. It's very strange. So if I can't reproduce the problem, I can't be certain I've fixed it. Like, I know I've temporarily fixed it, but now I don't know why. I was pretty confident as I was moving forward that we were isolating down, and whatever was corrupting the Windows 10 installation was also corrupting the BIOS. It was affecting the data in the BIOS. And that is typically power or RAM related in most cases, which is why my emphasis kept going back to RAM. However, because RAM is probably one of the most delicate, sensitive components of your whole build. If there's something where you want to worry about electrostatic discharge, it's when you're handling the RAM. All the RAM we're using has large heat spreaders on it, so it's, you know, as long as you're not touching the gold fingers at the end, you're going to be okay with it. Even if you feel an electrostatic shock on the heat shield, it's got nowhere to go. It's just a ground. So, but RAM itself is the most sensitive component. And then second, let's say solid state drive. But I've never seen a bad solid state drive. So you do get a bad power supply from time to time, and especially, you know, when I find out the customer's using an open box motherboard, you need to understand the it turns out that probably was nothing at all wrong with that open box motherboard, but it was sent back and it was returned because it was the first part that I identified as being most likely the cause of the problem. So, Geert wants me to set the BIOS back to the default. There's some mention of UEFI versus legacy. I installed it both ways. If you rewind the video and watch it, it was installed in both UEFI and in legacy mode, and in both cases, it locked up in the same place. So we've already been over that. The routing of the power supply cabling. I never referred to the routing of the power supply cabling. I was referring to the routing of the fan power cable on the CPU fan, which is unrelated to the issue we were having. It didn't affect anything really. He just ran the CPU power, not the CPU, the CPU fan power cable. He ran it through the little loop in the wire hanger, which I would never do, but it wasn't causing any harm. It made it difficult for me to put the wire hanger back on because the wire was in the way, and I'm like, why is this wire here? And then I realized he did that to give the wire something to wrap around when he should have used a wire tie the way I show. But we'll fix all that later. It just needed a good shaking. I know a few people like that. All right, so I guess we can, let's just hit reset here. Let's go back into the BIOS and let's take a look at what the date says now. Something was causing that date to change, and that's kind of where I'm stuck right now. That's the biggest clue that we have, was something was causing this date to change to, what was it before, 3029 or some ridiculous thing. And let's go back to legacy mode just for the fun of it. Let's go back to legacy mode here, and we'll install it in legacy mode. I really want to see if I can recreate this error. Eduardo has contributed 50 Mexican pesos. He says the Corsair case and RAM, EVGA power supply. That's going by too quick. Hold on a minute. Let me do this first. Get that install. Don't have a product key. Just in Pro. Okay, so where was I here? The Corsair case, RAM, EVGA power supply, gigabyte board, and inside the cooler, master CPU cooler is the best combo for a PC build, whether it's Intel or AMD. I recommend them. Big Dog says it was set to 129/39/20. Okay, well, I don't really think we have to be that precise. There's probably something significant about that date. It may be that you can't go beyond that date. Maybe the BIOS won't go beyond 39/20. There may be some significance to that. In fact, that's the only thing at this point that I think that we have now to chase after, is what caused that date to change. Even when I set it back, it went, it sort of went back to the same. So could it be a bug in the BIOS? Well, that doesn't explain why we've built so many of these exact same computers with the exact same parts, using the exact same Windows 10 install, and had no problems whatsoever, ever in the history of doing this, using the same BIOS. So no, it's not a BIOS bug. There's a reasonable limit at some point where you have to stop, right? So if you're a programmer and you're writing this code, you shouldn't need to write the code to go beyond 1,000 years. If you want to learn about that, and you weren't around during Y2K and why there was a big panic about Y2K, that will help you to understand why there may be a limit as to the significance of that year, 3920, in this BIOS, the way it was designed. On the other hand, maybe not. Maybe it's just a random number that appeared there based on a short circuit. I don't know, but it seems likely to me that may be the highest number it can go to. And the question is, whether it is or not isn't really that important. The question is why? Why did it go to that date. What caused that date to change? The reason it booted back to the boot install is it wants to boot to UEFI mode first, right? And so I booted it in legacy mode. So I have to remove the UEFI option to force the computer to boot to the legacy drive. So we've got Windows 10 now in legacy mode, and I'm just kind of curious if the BIOS, if the lockup will reoccur again. It reoccurred somewhere around this time, didn't it? Somewhere in here, I thought. There it is. Hey, we're getting somewhere. We're getting somewhere. This is a good thing. What's up, boy? Aw, come here, boy. Lyle. Oh, do you feel better? Oh, you probably don't feel better. What's the matter, my boy? Come here. Come here. Hey, buddy. Hold on a minute. We gotta get some Lyle time. And Jimmy too. Oh. What do you think the problem is, boy? What do you think that's causing that? Huh? What do you think that is? I don't know. Come here. Come here, Lyle. Come here, boy. Oh, you leaner. Come here, you look terrible. Come here. Come here. Stop beating your brother about. Come here. Don't be mad at me. You're gonna feel better, I promise. You won't even look at me? It's not that bad. Come on. Oh, I got ghosted. That's just mean. Come here. He is not in a mood. Come here, boy. Come here. Just fix your stupid computer. Come here. Come on, don't. There's old good boy. Yeah, it's okay. You'll be okay. Okay. Come on, buddy. Come here. Come on. Come here. Come here. You're a good boy. You're like, that other guy doesn't want to talk to you, but I'll talk to you all day. You're my favorite. Oh, come here, screwball. Come here, boy. Oh, poor thing. Boy, he is out of here. He's not having it today. He is not going to go on camera. He is not feeling well. And he's a ham, so you know he's not feeling well. Okay, let's just get Jimmy some food here. Oh boy. I know I'm not feeding Lyle, I'm just giving it to Jimmy because he's starving. Okay. Okay. So we're locked up here, and there's an interesting idea, and that is, you know, the fact that we can recreate this problem is extraordinarily important. So I'm wondering right now if I make another change in the BIOS, just out of curiosity, if we're going to boot in legacy mode, if we've got to turn CSM support off. Just want to see what happens. Ooh, didn't even boot at all, huh? Yeah, it won't even boot that way. What's the latest BIOS? Can we go to a larger BIOS? Can we go to 4029? Will it accept that? It will accept it. So that beats that. Like if it was the year 10,001, it won't go there, right? Because it'll go to what, 999? And then that's your limit. So you'll have your Y10K bug, in theory, because you go from a 4-digit date to a 10-digit date. Man, I don't want to be around on that day. I don't think that's going to be a problem. Holy smokes, Paul Carroll has contributed a $100 super chat. He says, hello, Carey, and hello to the doggies, too. Thanks to your videos, it helped me get my new Z370 Prime P2 board and i9 9900K with 16 gigs of RAM all put together. I was able to clone my SATA hard drive to an NVMe drive, and it all works great. Wow, that's fantastic, and thank you so much for supporting the channel. That's very generous, and you know, if you keep encouraging me, I'll keep making more, so you've been warned. It was very kind of you, thank you. How come everybody can't do that? Don't be greedy. Thank you. Interesting. What was it, 3029? It doesn't matter, does it? So what I want to do now, save and exit one more time. Oh. You've got to have CSM in order to see an NVMe drive. In legacy, I mean, with compatibility support mode, isn't that CSM? If you disable that, you'd have to go back to SATA. You see, with CSM support disabled, the NVMe drive disappears out of the BIOS. You don't see it at all. This is very strange. Try changing the date back to 1293920. Is that what it was before? Then he says CSM is mandatory for legacy mode. Guys, I haven't used legacy mode intentionally in a long time, a few years, so that's not on the top of my personal knowledge base, right? I leave the BIOS pretty much set at defaults. We're using the latest and greatest tech. And I get a little spoiled and a little, I don't know, information I don't use every day kind of gets pushed out for newer information. And I am losing a lot of light. Everything's very dark in here. It's already getting very late. So there's our lockup. We know it will work in legacy mode. We don't have a problem with legacy mode. So I'll tell you what, geez, I am seriously confused right now. This is a good one. I mean, I'm telling you what, you want a puzzle, we got a puzzle. So let's go back in the BIOS one more time and let's turn XMP on just because, even though it won't make any difference whatsoever, I just want to do it. I'm going to do it anyway. Rusty says I should sleep on it. I'm about to. But I would like to know the answer. There's no way two different motherboards defaulted to that date. There's no way. And of course, XMP isn't changing anything here. I just wanted to verify that. Now let's change the date back to 2020. Okay. Well, we did that before. Here's what we figured out. Like whatever this is, whatever's causing this lockup to occur, it will stay that way no matter what we do until we do a clean install again. So like if we change the date right here, we'll just leave it to 2020. Right? If that's the only thing we change, and then we save this, whether XMP is on or off, it's still going to do the same thing. But if I do a reinstall, then the reinstall will work. So now it's going to tell us we shut down improperly or something like that. Yeah, we'll tell it to restart anyway. Matt says that he accidentally returned the good board and keep the open box board. No, Matt, but thank you for the contribution and the creativity. I want to make sure Paul Carroll is a moderator. I just realized I didn't check that. He is a moderator already. Good, good, good. Okay. Back to the BIOS again. One more time. Let's hit reset. We know the reset button works. it go back to 3920? Let's put it back to 2020. Save and exit. And Marty's contributed again, $2. Thanks, Marty. There's our lockup again. Reset the BIOS. Reset the computer. Let's go back in the BIOS. See, I'm getting tired now. What's our date? Let's go to set the system date again back to 2020. And then save and exit setup. And then I'm going to turn the power supply off before Windows has a chance to change the BIOS date back and plug the flash drive back in. And without changing anything else, oh, I guess I gotta hit the switch in the power supply here. I'm gonna go back to the BIOS again and see if it changed back. Let's make sure it stays at 2020 right now. It's currently at 2020 right now. And I want to tell it to boot to, I'm gonna stay in legacy mode just to keep it in legacy. But all we're doing is changing the date and keeping it in legacy mode. See if there is, somebody needs to Google if there is a year limitation in legacy mode in Windows. Or did we just discover it by mistake? Okay, we're going to go through this again. The date doesn't have to be literally today's date. You guys are a little too precise. The BIOS on the motherboard, it's not connected to the internet, so if we're in a reasonable time frame between the manufacturing date of the board, let's say, and the near or recent future, we're going to be okay. But when it's excessively years behind or years ahead, that's where this issue exists. You literally do not have to put in today's date. So don't let yourself freak out about that. This build could have been done 2 months ago. You understand? And 2 months ago would have been the right date. And because the computer's not plugged into the internet, it doesn't know today's not the day I told it it was. But if I go too far in advance or too far in the past, then it can create an issue when installing Windows with regards to digitally signed files and things of that nature. And the way that Windows uses the time and date, and depending on if it's in UEFI or legacy mode, does seem to be making a difference here. But it's definitely a date-related issue with legacy mode. That's it really feels like that's the issue. Because I suspect in legacy mode, with the date, more reasonable, that it will succeed in the install. But let's find out, just to be sure. Now the system's going to want to boot to UEFI mode by default, which means when it reboots now, it should, when given a choice between booting from the legacy install of Windows 10 and the UEFI Windows install flash media, it should choose UEFI over and restart from the flash media drive right now. So let's see if we get the, oh no, well, guess I'm not right. Eddie says he's on pins and needles. That sounds uncomfortable. Kyle says Carey is stumped. Yes, the truer words have never been spoken. Looks good. So all we did is change the date. That's all we did. And we kept it in legacy mode in both circumstances, in both instances. And that has corrected I did not know I was going to learn this today. Did you know you were going to learn this today? Does anybody already know this? Rafi says it's a BIOS date bug. Well, maybe. Or it's a bug in the Windows 10 installation when the date is so far advanced. It definitely seems to be one of those two things, only when in legacy mode. And it looks like the media the customer made is legacy only, or only booted to legacy for some reason. But that's certainly what it appears at this time. Very interesting. So that boots up just fine in legacy mode with the correct date. So let's try this. Let's shut it back down. And we're going to go back into the BIOS. And we're going to go to the date again. What was it before? Somebody, I don't really think it matters. I think it's just the year so far in advance. It's not, I don't think it's date. I don't think it's up to a certain day. It's that it's so far in the future that it just wasn't tested as being a reasonable thing to test. But customers make typos, you know, push a 2 instead of a 3 or whatever. And then what I want to do now is I want to boot from the flash drive. Let's do this. Save and exit. And let's go back in the BIOS one more time. And let's make sure that that date is staying. Yeah, it is staying. Good. And let's tell it we now want to boot override to the UEFI. So we're going to do the same exact thing now, and the only thing we're changing is we're going to boot into UEFI and install Windows in UEFI and see if the lockup still happens to determine if it's a UEFI legacy issue or if it's specifically a date issue. Because if it's specifically a date issue, I've got questions for the customer. In other words, how do you get 2 motherboards? Well, I understand when you got the open box board. Oh, I think I know what happened. Here's my theory. Customer gets a board, open box from Amazon, and out of the box, the date, for whatever reason, is wrong. It's set to the year 3000. Customer builds everything, follows my video, and everything's great. They go to install Windows 10 and they run into this issue, and they contact me after they try a few things, and I say, change the motherboard. So he goes and gets a new motherboard and puts it in, and immediately tries to boot off the same hard drive again, which then changes the new motherboard's BIOS date to 3029, just like the original board had, because he didn't wipe the drive clean first. I think that's how he got, I think I got this now. I think I got this all figured out. Feels good. It's making sense. That is making sense. What a bizarre and unusual problem. That is, wow. Now I just want to see if it's legacy or UEFI related, or if the exact same thing happens in UEFI mode. If it does, then the question becomes, is it board specific, meaning it's a BIOS bug, or does it mean you at home can try this yourself on your board in your BIOS if you wanted to experiment with it? I'd be curious what your results are. Is it specific to this gigabyte board? Wow. Wow. See, that's worth fighting for. That's worth me being frustrated and going an hour and a half past my normal quitting time. Wow. So my only other question then is, if it's UEFI, if this will install with that date in UEFI, that the customer made his media wrong or booted to it wrong. So that's the only thing I want to know right now. Randall's like, there's no way. I'm not trying it. Oh, come on. RM says this will be a good story for tech vets. Mike Smith will like it. You're right. You're absolutely right, RM. I should remember to talk about that. Ayoris Jeffrey says, I will forward it to the engineers right after the live. Yes, please do, and please let me know what they say. I can't take credit for it. The customer, this all started because, does anybody remember? Because the customer wanted to save 15 or 20 bucks and bought an open box motherboard. A person that was looking to save a little money did not follow my advice, and you and I have been together now for 3.5 hours trying to solve this weird issue that I'm not saying it's the customer's fault. There's no reason this should be a problem. But the customer could have avoided the problem had he bought a brand new motherboard in the box right from the get-go. He would have had a completely different experience. The customer would have spent probably $20 more, and now he's got an extra CPU that's $400. Amazon was good and took the motherboard back. All the wasted time. On the plus side, I got to meet him. I get to make a new friend. And I got to learn this. I never knew this before. And I got to share this with a few thousand people around the world, live and unscripted. It's as real and as authentic and genuine, and maybe one of the best videos I've ever made, showing a true diagnostic, like the real process of why sometimes you can't rely on a manual, and why you can't rely on testing machines, why you shouldn't be buying open box stuff unless you're a technical person. Stop risking these frustrations to save a few dollars. In the long run, it's going to cost you a lot more. I keep saying it over and over again, and here I finally got a chance to demonstrate it. So you're gambling, right? And when you're running a business, this will put you out of business. Like if this is a customer's machine and I was trying to make an extra $20 and put an open box board in there, as a technician, I should know better and to double check everything. But as somebody building a computer for the second or third time in my life, that's far too advanced, far too advanced. Too many different little details you've got to pay attention to because you don't know what the person who had the board did to it. What do you think the odds are that the person who sent it back to Amazon the first time accidentally changed that date, couldn't install Windows 10? Then the second customer gets it. And you know what Amazon did to test that board? They probably threw RAM and a CPU in it, if they even did that, and saw that it posted and said it's good, put it back up for sale. Second customer gets it, has that problem, gets another board, and it changes the date. And how much you want to bet there's some other poor sap out there who did the exact same thing and ended up putting the infected or not infected, but the corrupted drive back into the new board only to have it recreate? How frustrated do you think that person was? Unless that person was a technical person, and if they were, did they, why did they have the problem to begin with? You know what I mean? Like why would they have sent the board back the first time? Unless they, took a little while. But okay, so it locked up again. So we know it's not a legacy or UEFI issue. It has nothing to do with the boot media whatsoever. This is strictly, jeez, oh man. Wow. $500 in spare parts, 3.5 hours of my time, not including the time spent in emails and phone calls, to save a few dollars, all because the BIOS date was set wrong. That's it. I have never more accurately predicted a more accurate name for a video that I was about to make. Like if I had already made this video and I thought about a title, the title I picked is perfect. It's perfect. Okay, I want you to pay attention to something, and I want you to watch this, because we're going to summarize everything right now. I'm going to go back in the BIOS, and I want you to watch me change the date in the BIOS. Right now, the BIOS is set to the year 3029. Now, don't worry about today's month and day. I don't want you to focus on that. I want you to focus strictly on the year. And I'm going to put it to this year, 2020. I want you to verify I've set it to 2020. And I'm going to go over here to save and exit. And I'm going to tell it to save and restart. Now, before I allow it to restart, I'm going to go back in the BIOS. Follow along with me. I'm going to go back in the BIOS. And I want to confirm that it saved the date. Okay? Follow? The date is now set to 1/29/2020. Even though that's not today's date, don't worry about that. We're in the right year, and that's important. So now I want it to to boot not off the Windows install, but to see if that's going to solve the boot issue, right? So what I do is I say, okay, I'm done with Windows now. I've installed it, and let's see if this makes it boot. So we'll just say, again, we'll exit without saving, or save and exit, doesn't matter. Pay attention, please. The date is set to 2020. I don't have to save it and exit. Either way, save and exit or exit without saving, it's going to state 2020. Let's do it one more time. Save and exit, yes. I want to go back in one more time, and I want to verify that the date is still 2020. Follow me on this. Is my date still 2020? My date is still 2020. Okay, maybe that'll fix my Windows boot up problem, right? Maybe that'll fix it. So save and exit one more time, and just let it boot off of the solid state drive that has the corrupted Windows 10 install that was started with the wrong date. Whether it's in legacy or UEFI mode makes no difference. Now it goes to start up, and it's going to lock. There it is. It locked. We go, well, why did it lock? Let's hit reset, and let's go check that BIOS date. Okay, so we're going to go back in the BIOS after a failed attempt to restart and look at the date. Look at the date. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining me today. My thanks to all of the contributions, everybody who's contributed during today's show. I appreciate your contributions very much. Those of you who are watching me for the first time, I hope you'll come back and see me again. The lesson here, check your date and time. And if you have a corrupted Windows install and you try to start it and it still doesn't start, it may have changed your date and time even after you just changed it. You'll have to change the date and time and do a complete wipe and reinstall of Windows in this particular instance, which doesn't matter because this would only happen on a new install, UEFI, or legacy mode. Okay? That's an eye-opener. Yeah. Woo! Ha ha! Now I want to meet the person responsible, please. Face to face. Give me a name. Wow. Thank you to Ron, this poor individual who built his own computer because I said, look how easy it is. It's adult Legos. And God bless him. He did everything right. He shouldn't have bought that open box motherboard, man. This all started. There was nothing wrong with the motherboard. There was nothing wrong with it. Somebody changed the date, probably by mistake, and then like a series of dominoes, we're looking at hardware, and it was basically a software with Windows or a BIOS bug involved. And the only way I'm going to know is to grab another board and to try this with another board. And we'll find out if it's specific to this board or if it's in general to a manufacturer. And that'll be a follow-up that I will work on this. Thanks, you guys, for all of your helpful suggestions and all of your support. And that was a doozy. And I do want to shout out everybody who's contributed today. This is a long list of names. So if you've contributed multiple times, I'm just going to say your name once just to get through the list. And thank you guys so much. To each and every one of you. Winston Anglu, Matt Wall, Paul Carroll. That was a great contribution, Paul. David Kane, Wilby, Eduardo Turan, Rochester NY87, Randall Hill, Madioel, Hugh Wong, Dugga57, Fred Garner, Zero Core, Glenn Davies, multiple contributions from Glenn Davies, multiple contributions from David Starbuck. Thank you so much, David, for going above and beyond anything I would expect a viewer to do, as well as many of you others as well who've also been very generous in the past. And even the smaller amounts today, you know, they add up, guys. So everything counts, and thank you. Abdul Azim Patel, Kenneth Sikorsky, Fred Adams, CMA 454NS, Robert Rakovic, I think that's Andrew Dorset, Sludgester, John Tuvey, Boss Peter, Marty, of course, Marty, thank you for all your contributions. Lots from Rochester, NY87, thank you. Lots from Glenn Davies, lots from Hugh Wong and Joe Bush, Samuel Ramos, Wonder Woman, Tomcat, Charles McClintock and Dr. Gregorian, PhD, Al McDonald, Alec Frater, Paul Newman, Michael Dane, Thomas Beckenstowe, Toddy Lane, Ghost Shadow, George Patagas, Tom Jackson, Alan Ronald, John Craig, Sharon Idle, David Griswold, Bear Paw, Alan Wimp and Wilhelm Gordon, Colin Hunt and Andrew Dorset, Ryan Farmer and Irving T. Thank you guys so much. Brian Rempel, Charles Heidkemp and Simon Etches and Rick Lakes, and of course Jesse Kirk, Steve Welch, and Tony Wallow and Brendan Looney and Chester Hughes. It's because of you guys this video is possible. And for all of the viewers helping me to achieve a greater than 2,000, what do we have, a maximum number of viewers? It's never happened before. I'm just super excited to kind of feel some real momentum. And further, I didn't really see much in the way of trolls today, which is like amazing considering the turnout. I cannot really express to you what this all means to me, to have your support and to get something done and to share the sense of accomplishment. I don't know any other way for you to feel that other than for you to join me on the journey. And for those of you who did, I hope you felt that, what I felt when it all started to come together, because it's very addictive. It's like a drug. It's a really euphoric sense of accomplishment and fulfillment. And you know, if I ever see this again and I'm able to solve it like that, people will say, that guy's really smart. But what they don't know is it's all of this work that adds up that results in that end result. It doesn't mean I'm smart. It means that I struggled and got a scar. Now I remember, because I don't want another scar. These are the lessons that will stay with you. And I've never seen anything like this before. This is the very first time I've ever seen it. And I've seen date issues, but nothing like this. This is the very first time. So a shout out to poor old Ron, the owner of this computer. But at least we have an answer now. And again, from Abdul Azim Patel, thank you again for your contribution as well. To all my friends in blue, again, thank you for keeping it civil, helping to keep it civil in the chat room. And for everybody who's not yet blue, you know it's my goal that I have every single viewer blue. And all you have to do to be blue is not be a jerk and be sort of regular so I can recognize you. Be supportive and be kind to each other. That's all. Don't argue. Don't fight. Don't put anybody down. Don't try to prove you're smarter. Just be nicer. Prove you're nicer. Prove you're more supportive. That's an admirable quality, and we're making and creating an amazing community here of people who do just that. And those people in blue are people who I have currently identified as having that admirable quality. And I would love nothing better than this whole chat room be blue. Please help me achieve that. You guys, thank you so much one more time for joining me today. I will see you all again, certainly Monday. I don't think I have time over the weekend, but I will join you again very, very soon. Thank you so much, and I gotta find my link. Bye for now.